Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ala Abudaka. I'm the founding director of Access Advisors and also the ecosystem building and outreach lead of the EBSI-NE, the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure Node Expansion Project. On behalf of Access Advisors and also the Howest University, I would like to welcome you today to the EBSI Demystifying seminar. The event is funded by the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure Node Expansion Project, which has been working hard to deploy blockchain nodes across Europe. These nodes are essential for creating a secure and decentralized infrastructure, helping member states to collaborate and use EBSI to address real needs. Right now, EBSI is at a turning point. It's transitioning from being managed by the European Commission to being led by member states under EDIC Europeum. This is a big step in scaling blockchain adoption across Europe, but it also raises questions about how we work together, how we govern the system, and how we build trust in technology. EBSI isn't just about blockchain for the sake of it. It's about solving practical problems, verifying credentials for education and jobs, enabling secure digital identities for cross-border movement, improving social security systems, and ensuring traceability for goods and services. These are real-world applications that can make a difference in how public services work for European citizens and economy. Today is all about understanding EBSI better, how it works, what's already happening, and how we can take it further. We will hear from experts, learn about use cases, and talk about what's needed to scale these solutions and make them work for everyone. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping notes that we want to mention to our online viewers. Please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to submit your questions. We will address as many as possible after each presentation, but also during the Q&A session. For our in-person attendees here, thank you for being here. Please note down any questions that you may have. We will also answer those while we can. And lastly, please make sure that your phones are on silent mode to avoid any disruption. One more important note that we checked today, there are microphones in the room and they're very sensitive. So if you are speaking to each other, even whispering, those microphones will pick that up and the online participants will hear what you're saying. So please avoid chatting while there are presentations. So with this, thank you for being here today. Thanks to our speakers and partners for making this event happen. And it's my pleasure to kick off our seminar. And to set the stage, our keynote speaker today is Mathieu Michel, Belgium State Secretary for of State for Digitalization. Mr. Michel has been a driving force in Belgium digital transformation, championing innovations like smart cities and digital identity, while prioritizing transparency, privacy, and AI leadership. Today, he'll share his vision for Belgium's role in Europe's digital future. Please welcome with me, Mr. Mathieu Michel.
Thank you very much. That's the first time I hear that there are sensitive microphones. I think that's a trick to maintain the audience silence. I will maintain it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy that there are ladies in the room because too often when we speak about blockchain, that's only a matter of men. It's really my pleasure to address this assembly at the EBSI, Belgian Demystifying Seminar. What a privilege what a privilege it is to live in this extraordinary time. From Gutenberg to Ford, from the internet to artificial intelligence, blockchain, and beyond, each wave of innovation has profoundly reshaped humanity's past. Today, the pace of change is accelerating at an unprecedented rate, creating opportunities, but also redefining the balance of global power. Specifically in Europe, our challenge is huge. The technologies driving our societies, cloud, AI, 5G, and others, are often developed outside our borders by giants like GAFAM or BATX, Chinese firms. This dependence raises urgent questions about our digital sovereignty. I think that not being ahead is to fall behind. That is why Europe, and Belgium in particular, must dare to lead. During Belgium's presidency of the European Union, we have worked to bring innovative approaches, including using blockchain differently, not just for cryptocurrency applications, but to build trust, transparency, and sovereignty into our systems. While blockchain is a central pillar of this vision, it is important to acknowledge that blockchain may not be the only technical solutions for the digitalization of our society. However, if we choose to invest in this technology, it's because we cannot afford to ignore its immense potential. That's why I decided to promote EUROPEUM. This initiative is much more than a technical project. It is a bold political initiative designed to establish a decentralized and regulated European sovereign infrastructure. At its heart lies the ambition to create a secure digital highway that embodies trust, strengthens collaboration, and safeguards sovereignty within the European Union. In a rapidly evolving digital landscape, EUROPEUM is a declaration of Europe's political intention to take ownership of its digital destiny. Through this infrastructure, we aim to ensure that European values like democracy, transparency, and privacy protection are deeply embedded in the way we use and share data. EUROPEUM is not just about what Europe builds, it's about who we are and what we stand for. Since its inception, EUROPEUM has seen remarkable progress. Thanks to the collaborative efforts of participating member states and the support of the European Commission, the legal framework has been finalized. The governance board representing the member countries has begun its work. We are now in the recruitment phase, assembling a diverse team of experts from across Europe to drive the initiative forward. In the coming months, the first use cases will be operational, marking a significant milestone in our journey. These use cases will demonstrate the transformative potential of EUROPEUM across several sectors. To bring this vision to life, let us imagine the possibilities for citizens. EUROPEUM can build secure infrastructure, enabling a Belgian citizen to travel to Italy, and can rely on their digital identity. For businesses, companies can enhance efficiency and transparency through decentralized autonomous organizations and smart contracts, which automate processes, reduce intermediaries, and ensure immutable real-time tracking of transactions and decisions. For the state, a citizen buying a house will be able to receive his title deed in this blockchain, automatically making him the owner of the digital twin of his house in a regulated metaverse, for example. Why couldn't we imagine a digital euro on EUROPEUM? And for democracy, last week I met with Ilya Polushkin, CEO of NEAR Protocol, whose technology enables the authentication of original sources for images, thanks to blockchain, offering a powerful tool in the fight against deepfake. These examples illustrate the profound ways EUROPEUM can impact daily life. But beyond these conveniences, the initiative reflects our broader commitment to fostering a more integrated, inclusive, and resilient digital single market. Obviously, to make our country more efficient, we need to invest in other technologies. For example, we are one of the most advanced European countries in the implementation of eIDAS legislation with our digital wallet, MyGov. Thanks to this tool, citizens already have access to their private data, their official documents, their communications with the authorities, and so on. In the coming months, we'll be rolling out even more applications to make life easier for citizens thanks to technology. To return to EUROPEUM, I would like to point out that it is not just about technology. It is about empowering people. By establishing a common decentralized and secure data infrastructure and sovereign, we enhance the control citizens have of their personal data. We enable interoperability like never before. The system prioritizes privacy by design, allows ensuring that data sovereignty is not merely a principle, but a reality. Member states too benefit from greater cooperation while retaining their unique identities and governance model. This balance between unity and diversity is essential to maintaining the trust and engagement of all stakeholders. Furthermore, EUROPEUM enhances the EU's digital competitiveness, ensuring we are not just participants in the global digital economy, but leaders of innovation and standard setting. To unlock the full potential of EUROPEUM, we must grow its community. Today, 9 countries, including Belgium, Cyprus, Greece, Croatia, Italy, Luxembourg, Portugal, Poland, and Romania, have committed to hosting nodes and contributing to the network. But this is only the beginning. We extend an open invitation to other member states to join us in this journey. Hosting a EUROPEUM node is not just a technical task. It is a declaration of solidarity with Europe's digital sovereignty agenda. Beyond governments, we encourage businesses, public institutions, civil society, organizations, and research centers to explore how they can integrate EUROPEUM in their operations. This infrastructure offers them the tool to innovate, collaborate, and grow while staying aligned with EUROPEUM values. I believe that a project like EUROPEUM has the potential to be a solution for many of the challenges we face today. But I also must be honest. I cannot claim to be fully convinced yet. What I'm certain of, however, is this. In a rapidly evolving world, we must dare to innovate. We must take risks. We must have the courage to embrace and use transformative technologies, even when their full potential is not yet guaranteed. Because the true risk lies in doing nothing, standing still as the world moves forward at an accelerating pace. I invite each of you to be part of this journey, whether as policymakers, business leaders, researchers, or citizens. Your engagement is essential to making EUROPEUM a success. Together, we can harness the power of digital innovation to build a Europe that is not just more connected, but more united, fair, and prosperous. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew Michel, for your intervention. Our next speaker is Piotr Rutkowski, Vice Chair of Europeum-EDIC and a trusted advisor to the Polish Ministry of Digital Affairs. Piotr has been instrumental in advancing blockchain and distributed ledgers technologies across Europe, leading projects in cybersecurity and representing Poland in the European Blockchain Partnership. Today, he will discuss EDIC's role in fostering collaboration and scalability for blockchain. Please welcome Piotr.
First, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in the EBSI Demystifying seminar, which are nominally hosted by our colleagues from the International EBSI-NE Consortium. Allowed all participants of the EBSI-NE Consortium are obliged to organize similar demystifying seminar. So we have the great challenge to follow what is happening in Belgium today. We are planning to make such seminar in Warsaw in January. But yesterday, when I clicked on LinkedIn the link to the seminar program, which was attached to the banner with my photo and my short story, it showed that the Demystifying seminar program is not only today in Brussels, but also planned in Thursday in Croatia, because the link go to the Croatia, not to our seminar. So if someone is not present today here, he's probably going to the sister event in Buzin near the Zagreb in Croatia today. As you see, the use of rather creative, let's admit word, mystify, backfired to us a bit. This small misunderstanding. Today, however, I'm not representing EBSI-NE Consortium, but multinational project EUROPEUM-EDIC. It is not coincidence that I have been given such prominent place in today's program, and the honor of speaking after such important great figure as the digital transformation, for the digital transformation at Minister Matthew Michel, and before the Pierre Moreau, who was the spiritus movens of everything which happened about the blockchain in the European Commission during last year. I believe that by creating EUROPEUM-EDIC, we are laying the groundwork for better development of blockchain technology application in the public sector. So it is our first challenge, which was the aim to create the EDIC. Because our strongest point is to be active in the public sector. We don't want to compete with the mainstream of the blockchain movement with everything what happened, which is something fascinating in the crypto world, crypto assets. We are focused on the public sector. We want to improve the public sector by the technology. We are in the period of new change in the development prospects, probably differently than the digital affairs ministers imagined it in 2018 when they declared that all European countries would join the European Blockchain Partnership. At that time, there was a lot of optimism about blockchain applications and the belief that blockchain technology would revolutionize the internet and enter in our area of life. This is probably not happened, but we managed to create the basis for the intergovernmental cooperation in the blockchain applications. verified credentials as the useful tool for confirming the process and documents, and the extensive European EBSI infrastructure as well. We are currently taking the opportunity to give new opportunities to the technological development trends within the EU political program, The Way to the Digital Decade 2030. The digital decade is to give Europe more effective tools for the technological innovation. It inspires us to create the multi-country projects. A legal framework has been created for the institutional form of the multi-country projects in the laws which introduce the Digital Decade program. Multi-country projects like EDIC are the entities with the legal personality that can obtain new source of financing and the new forms of cooperation. When I say the change, I mean, among others, multi-country projects, EDIC is the area of the breakthrough technologies, which is one of the aim of the Digital Decade policy program. At the same time as the EUROPEUM-EDIC was created, the ALT-EDIC was also established, which will deal with AI language models. It is very fashionable now. Last week at the annual Quantum Technology Conference, Quantum Internet EDIC was mentioned. We can hope that the EDIC form will be development training ground for the various technological challenges in the EU. So we are not only the part of the blockchain world. We are the part of the technological world and technological innovation. Certainly, not only one, because the scale of the technological challenges that accompanies the debate on the development models in the European Commission and the global competition certainly requires new ideas and new concepts. At the moment, as just Mr. Minister told, we have the 10 countries that decide to participate in the EUROPEUM-EDIC and which receive the governmental support. It is Belgium, Cyprus, Greece, Croatia, Italy, Luxembourg, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovenia. But several other countries are already announced their intention to become full members or observers for the transition time of the creation of the EUROPEUM-EDIC. In EUROPEUM-EDIC, we have assumed that in the first years, when we use only the public source of financing, countries are to apply for full membership according to the principle one country, one vote. But this is for the beginning. In future, we can change it if the members country will decide. Financing now is created by the contribution from the member states and grant from the Digital Euro program, which we are applying for. But potentially, this may also be other financial instruments of the public sector. So everything is available, which is available for the technological development. It's also available, will be available for the European market. In principle, this will therefore be a continuation of the development of program practiced by the EBSI team. We appreciate the development of EBSI network, and we should follow it. The continuation is probably the first message. In the coming months, we will be facing the process of technical takeover of EBSI resources. It is the process which will take a lot of effort, and probably we should spend some time how to do it. As I told, we believe that we want to ensure the continuity of EBSI development in this matter. So it is also the message for the project developer which are underway. We are in the process of creating the new EDIC institution, and now we have the process of recruitment for the new director. So it is underway now. This new director will take the responsibility of ensuring the operational capacity and creating of the new EUROPEUM-EDIC institution. So his first task is to create all these administrative tasks which are related to the creation of the institution. Therefore, it would be quite difficult for me to satisfy your curiosity about detailed plans of EUROPEUM-EDIC. Perhaps its most important message that I can convey to this is the strong will to make important decisions by the General Assembly and not to allow it to the leaders. Until it is possible and effective, you want to perspective in the transparent policy or decision process. In that sense, there is something of blockchain. It is not yet DAO as the public public construction of this institution, but we want to give the power of decision to all member states, and to allow the member states to create the policy to make them some intensive to participate in the creation of the EUROPEUM and EUROPEUM plans.
Thank you, Pietro. I just have a few questions from online participants for you. Now that EDIC, this is a question from Luis Alphonse. Now that EDIC has been formally established, what can you tell us about the current strategy and business plans, basically for EDIC? How will these plans support the next phase of EBSI's development and adoption across member states?
We of course, creating the EDIC, the application for the EDIC, we created the extensive documents with the plans and the view created almost 2 years ago. So it is the first challenge is to adapt it to the current challenges, and and as I told just in the moment, we want to confront it with the opinions of the member states. We want to ask the members of the General Assembly to vote about all important steps. So now we are focused on the creation of the institution. It is an administrative task, not very attractive maybe to talk about, but it's something we should do. And so we have the seat which is offered by the Belgian Ministry BOSA. It's maybe 300-400 meters from here. We have the banking account. We are recruiting the director, and he is not selected yet. We're recruiting CIO as well, so we will create the office. But in the meantime, we apply for the financial support for the Digital Euro program, and the part of this application is also some business view about the future of EDIC. And the terms of the application was also related to the focus on the continuation of the existing policy and to support the EBSI transition, etc. But of course, we can imagine a lot of challenges which are related to not only to the blockchain itself, but also something which is changing in the blockchain world. from my personal point of view, now I'm talking about my view, not the European view, maybe, we should follow everything which is happened in the area of the technologies and to work together about how to create the governmental policy, and European policy, how to create the policy which will support the blockchain development, the industry development, European industry development, how to make us competitive in front of something which is happened in the United States, in China. In the United States, we can expect a lot of movement because there are a lot of promises from the Silicon Valley, which have some expectation about the President Trump policy, and we should follow it. So it's very difficult to give the good, satisfactory answer about the business plan today. We will construct it or reconstruct it in the next weeks, next months.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Pierre Mahot, Policy Officer at the European Commission in DG Connect. Pierre leads the blockchain team within the Next Generation Internet Unit, focusing on advancing blockchain adoption across Europe. With a background in engineering and business, he has been essential in shaping digital innovation policies at the European Commission. Today, he will provide his insights into the EBSI integration into public services. Please welcome Pierre Mahot.
Thanks. Many thanks, Ala, and good afternoon to all of you in this room and also those who are online. My privilege to be with you following the two inspiring speeches from Mathieu Michel and from Piotr Kwiatkowski. Okay, let's talk about how all those things have been initiated, and in the context of the beginning or even before the start of the outgoing commission, and then maybe during this event, I'm sure that all of you will think about what should be the future priority in the context of the next commission, expected to be announced in a few days, beginning of December. So I'm not going to be exhaustive about everything which has been done in Europe, in particular support by the European Commission in terms of action related to blockchain or Web3 technology, more generally speaking. But I can start with this slide, which gives you an overview, again, not exhaustive, and which makes the link with the beginning of this EBSI and EUROPEUM venture that was started indeed in 2018 through a joint declaration of the member states at ministerial level. And that created first this European blockchain partnership, and several of you in this room or online have been associated to this initiative, with the main focus to develop a pan-European blockchain service infrastructure to support cross-border public services, which has now led to the creation of EUROPEUM. But I don't want to come back to what has been just said on EUROPEUM, but I would like to stress the fact that EUROPEUM has been set up not only to continue the work on this blockchain infrastructure, on this Web3 infrastructure, but also to facilitate cooperation on Web3, generally speaking, and also to make it in combination with other key technology. So that's something important which have been initiated, which have been developed, which I will come back a bit later. But okay, this is the first point I wanted to stress. The second point is that we have engaged a dialogue with different industry representatives and also other regions of the world. We have done it in particular with the INAPA Association and Ricardo Zamov is here today, but not only INATBA, but with a specific attention to INATBA, which is an international association that for which the Commission has facilitated the creation. And we have still a regular dialogue through INATBA with other regions of the world, in particular for what we call through the government advisory body to monitor and also to exchange on what is done elsewhere. We have launched different action with the objective to get a better understanding about blockchain. We have back years ago, and it was, the hype was very high, and now it's a different situation. I will comment to that, but it was important to demystify. It's also the title of the seminar today. What is blockchain and what we can do? So, one famous initiative was the Open Blockchain Observatory Forum, which has been stopped as such, but which has helped a lot to have a debate with different practitioners and also different users of this technology. And during the mandate of the outgoing Commission, a lot of several important initiatives has been launched in the context of the adaptation of our regulatory framework. And the most famous one is market in crypto asset regulation, which have been initiated not by us in Connect, even if my colleagues have contributed to it, but by DG FISMA. And it's now started to be implemented, and it's something which is important and which has so far has created a lot of attention of Europe for people using or exploiting Web3 technology. And the situation so far is that it was a good contribution of Europe to create, to develop the ecosystem around those technology in Europe versus what was done in the US. Now the situation may change, may significantly change, but I'm not going to speculate too much about what is going to happen, but it's clear that we are now at a transition period for different things. First, for the Commission itself, for the EUROPEUM-EDIC and the creation and the way this EBSI initiative is implemented, but also about the general context in which future solution can be developed or adopted in different parts of the world, and particularly in Europe. Through these framework activities, legal framework activities, we have also introduced a specific provision on the Data Act for smart contract or on the European digital identity framework with specific reference to electronic ledgers that can have an impact on the development and the adoption of those technology, and more specifically on EBSI. But the key regulatory element has been indeed the MiCA and the pilot regime regulation. But there is another also important initiative that we have taken, and I will come back to that, which concern the open blockchain regulatory standards, which is something which is ongoing and which is, we think, quite helpful for the community on both sides, the innovators and also the regulators. During this period, we have also supported a significant number of research and innovation projects through our EU program for research innovation. So in the past, it was Horizon 20, now it's Horizon Europe. We have made an assessment recently which shows that we have funded over the past 7 to 8 years more than 200 projects for an EC contribution of nearly 700 million euros as EC contribution. But of course, not all this money has gone to blockchain actors per se. It has gone to a project where blockchain play a role. But in some projects, it is a minimum role. In others, it can be something much more significant. But just to show that there have been a continuous support from the EU program to projects which try to innovate based on Web3 technology or blockchain, and this will of course continue. And so it also demonstrates the attention that was played by the research community in different fields, that would be in the agriculture, in the transport, in energy sectors, and of course in the digital one, to use those technology. We also supported different initiatives related to skills, including a CHASE project where several of you have played a role, INAPA, but many other one, which is also coming to an end, but which has helped to, let's say, to establish a strategy and a program for developing skills on blockchain at national level. And of course, we are also supporting standardization and in a view to develop interoperability. And I take the opportunity to announce a workshop that will be organized on the 13th of December, organized by INAPA with our support on standardization. Opportunity to see me again, but many other important players, I'm sure. And finally, which is not on this slide, but which is also important, we have considered the sustainability aspect as a cross-cutting element of this of those different initiatives. As part of the BK regulations, there is a need to make an assessment about what is the carbon footprint of different solutions. There is an ongoing study which is managed by my colleague from FISMA. There is also several references to blockchain in the context of the Digital Energy Action Plan. And of course, we are looking for a possibility for Web3 or blockchain. I hesitate to use one or the other term, to contribute to, let's say, policy in the green agenda, for instance, the digital product passport implementation, that would be something important. So also to highlight that altogether, the different policy action that we initiate at within the European level may trigger also opportunities for blockchain to contribute to the implementation of those policies. Now to come back to today, but a lot of things have been already said, and I'm not going to spend too much time, but indeed we have initiated this initiative with member states. We often say that we are now moving from let's say, an organization where the Commission is playing an important role to another organization where it will be the member states that will be in the driving seat. But from the very beginning, we have paid attention to, let's say, first to deliver for what was in the declaration of the member state and to involve as much as possible the member state. But this model was not adapted to a phase of production and a phase of growth, as it was stressed by Mathieu Michel and by Piotr before. And hence, we have now an evolution about the governance and also the way this action will be managed. But the original objective still remain, which is finally the objective is to enhance the life of citizen and enterprise organizations all across Europe by making the best of Web3 technology, and in doing so to contribute to the implementation of EU policy, as I said before, and different priorities. But when we say EU policy, it's also often the same policy that needs to be implemented also at the member state level. And of course, the approach that we have taken is to make it in full respect of our European values, in particular for what concerns the environmental impact of such an initiative, and also to be sure that we respect all the existing regulation and contribute to the implementation of those regulation, and with also the objective to contribute to a sovereign infrastructure, or to make Europe more autonomous in using those type of technology. So now all this, let's say, initiated work and different contribution to which many of you are involved, project or other role, is indeed at a transition point with the creation of EUROPEUM, thanks to the 10 member states which have engaged at this stage. But as it was stressed, we open to many others to join in future step. And we know that at least as an observer, we have already five or even more countries that are ready to join as observer as soon as it is decided by the European Assembly of Members. So it's still under operationalization, as explained by Piotr and also by Secretary Mathieu Michel. But significant progress are done. We could all expect things to be faster, but what matters is that it goes Can you speak a little bit? Yeah, but I have no microphone, so okay, I will try to speak a bit louder. Okay, so it's under operationalization. And of course, in doing so, the objectives that we have at the European Commission is that it continue to build on different initiatives and projects that we have launched, like the EBSI-NE project, the EBSI Vector project, the DC4U project, which have been launched in another context, but which is closely linked to what we are doing in EBSI. And the first objective is, of course, to, let's say, continue the activities on EBSI, in particular for deploying it at production level and exploiting it at production level. But it can go, there is no limit to what can be done through this EUROPEUM initiative. This slide, many of you know it already. It presents a family of use cases on which we are already engaged, but it's just a flavor about what can be done. But what is important is that we have now an infrastructure which is able to facilitate the exchange of any type of certificate, attribute, credential, and also to support the trust model, which is necessary for it. So this is something which is already piloted, which has been subject to a lot of traction in the EBSI ecosystem. And this is probably the things to continue and to deepen in order to for EBSI to find its full place in the life of organization and citizens. In doing so, what is really important is that we clarify how EBSI is contributing to the EUDI initiative, the EUDI framework regulation, and step by step we'll make this clarification, and it will help to reinforce the attractiveness and the traction created on EBSI. But EBSI can be used also for different purposes, and we have started also some activities to pilot or demonstrate the value, the context of IP management or traceability of product in the context of anti-counterfeiting policy. And we have, as I said before, this is also discussion concerning the implementation of the digital product passport. So all those things are subject to evolution and to reinforcement as the EUROPEUM-EDIC itself will. So I'm not here to, let's say, state what will be the future of EUROPEUM or future evolution of EUROPEUM, because it's not my decision, it's not the decision of the Commission, it will be the decision of the member of EUROPEUM. But of course, what we expect to see to happen is that first, as I said, we continue and deepen the existing action. Then it was said also by Piotr and Mathieu Michel, we need to enlarge EUROPEUM to enlarge its membership with two options for new countries to join as member or as observer. And we also think that EUROPEUM could develop specific partnership in order to support some specific use case or for different reasons that could be a way to help EUROPEUM to be take its full place in the European landscape. EBSI is reinforcement, but what I want to insist is that EUROPEUM is also a vehicle that can help cooperation, particularly between public authorities, member states in Web3, also in combination with other technology. And Mathieu Michel made a reference to a project which was presented last week in another event, which concerned how to use Web3 for facilitating say, the development of AI models. So this is something that probably will be addressed in future steps in the context of EUROPEUM. What I want to insist is that the uniqueness of this initiative in Europe, and by this way, it can be a magnet for many other organizations to join or to develop a partnership with it. And also the fact that EUROPEUM exists as a new legal entity make it eligible for different EU funding that we have at Research Innovation Program or other program, possibly in a consortium involving other actors. So, but again, it's not my my role to speculate too much about what will be done by EUROPEUM. What matters is that indeed EUROPEUM reinforce its own resources in order to address those different challenges that can be associated to what's with the. Now, very quickly, I would like to say a few words about this Open Blockchain Sandbox, which is an initiative which aims to select through a cohort of 20 projects, innovative project building on blockchain, and to organize a dialogue between those projects and different regulators coming from different countries, depending where the project aims to develop a solution, and of course at European levels, through colleagues of the European Commission or through colleagues from the different supervisory agency in the context of financial services, as an example. So this is an initiative which is new, but which is more, the term sandbox, regulatory sandbox, is more and more used within the mix of policy action that we have at European level. And we pioneer in a way use of the sandbox in the Commission, but there is another sandbox that we created in AI. And what we observe through this initiative is more and more interest from member state authorities to join the dialogue and to learn from the different projects what are the existing challenges between what they propose and the regulation in place or the evolving regulation, and what may be possible to improve or to clarify when those regulation or legislation are implemented. So it is also something which bridge with the EBSI, because we have one project now in EBSI which participates in this project EBSI Vector. So some of you are already deeply involved in this activity. I propose to stop here, but to take a few questions if need be. Now, I think later there is a panel.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Pierre, for the presentation. Actually, so many interactions in the chat. And I think we will take one question now and then the rest in the Q&A session afterwards. From our colleagues in Czech Republic, from Digital and Information Agency, they're asking about the sandbox and will the European blockchain sandbox coordinate its effort with European?
But we have an agreement between the sandbox, which is that as part of each cohort of 20 projects which are selected in 3 steps by the sandbox, we should have one project which is related to CFC. And this is what we have done for the first and second cohort, where actually it was the same project, but dealing for 2 different use cases which have been selected. And of course, all those activities which are that I have presented in my first slide, or which can be also related to the sandbox, in future step, we could imagine that EUROPEUM will play a role in different ways. So I have many ideas myself, but again, I'm not here to orient too much what will be the future decision of EUROPEUM. But clearly, this sandbox is something that will be partly continued by EUROPEUM, or where EUROPEUM could contribute via the selection of projects or by the mobilization of different authorities at member state level to participate.
Thank you very much, Pierre. We will continue in the Q&A and the panel discussion afterwards. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Our next speaker, Jonas Dalinkovicius, director at eDelivery LT and the leader of EBSI-NE node deployment under our project EBSI-NE, with over 15 years of experience in ICT and business analysis. Jonas envisions EBSI as the next generation trust service provider for Europe. He will share his insights about this in the presentation, but also about our progress as EBSI-NE project and the node deployment, basically what are the next steps. Please welcome Jonas. Thank you very much.
I already tried that. Okay. I will need to manage my time because I think we are running a bit out of time.
Don't worry, I will
Okay.
have you covered.
Okay. So thanks for having me here. Most of the things that I wanted to present were already told by Pierre. So essentially, sorry for repetance. Nevertheless, what you will hear from me, it's my view, how I see the future of EBSI and where it will evolve. This is my perception, and usually, well, maybe I skip that. And usually, when I read scientific papers when it comes to blockchain, I already got used to the Satoshi Nakamoto's reference to his paper or them paper. So basically, what we have right now with current EIDAS, so instead of referring to something that was written so long back before, although it's great, it is something that is written in EIDAS regulation. I mean, it's from EBSI perspective, it's a foundation. At least this is how I see it. First of all, a clear definition what is electronic ledger. This is what more or less EBSI is about. More specifically, when it comes to legal terms, that it cannot be discriminated just based on the technology that is behind. So for policymakers, for that plan to implement EBSI or use EBSI or utilize EBSI for various use cases, it means that according to EIDAS, when the use case will go cross borders, it cannot be discriminated. And one specific article that is also very important, requirements that are being set in the EIDAS, current EIDAS 2 version. And actually, if you will read through this, all the points, you will see that EBSI fulfills all of them. So it means tick, tick, tick. So this means that current EBSI is compliant to what the EIDAS requires. As this is a demystifying seminar, I need to tell a couple of words, to take a couple of words and then tell you what is the blockchain here and then what is the most important part. It's not just just a ledger with the blocks, signatures linked to each other, all that stuff. There's also legal part there. There's well, someone needs to establish it. So basically, it's not just a plain ledger as we understand it right now. Usually, just a plain technology. It's the whole stack of it. So it's with the current EIDAS, we are opening the field for new applications that can be based on EIDAS, not EIDAS, on blockchain. And as far as I remember, European Commission had that ambition to become, well, at least be visible in blockchain world, because we were somehow lagging behind, and at some point we needed to be in the picture in the whole world. I mean, we as a European Union, we needed certain technology that could be driven by the member states only. It shouldn't be hosted somewhere else, like in USA data centers or whatever it is. It should be something that was created by European Commission with policy, technology, all the stuff, and backed up by member states. So this is where EBSI started as a blockchain project, I think. And throughout the evaluation, I think it is not so blockchain anymore. It's about an ecosystem, the whole ecosystem to build a trust and to build a services that demands transparency, reliability, all that stuff. So those applications were already presented by Pierre Moreau. I won't stick here. What I would like to highlight here, before I will enter to my next slides, how the EBSI is composed. It's like a layers. It's it's like an onion. So you need to look at as a technological stack. And the most important one, what Piotr already presented. So it's an EUROPEUM-EDIC. So it's a governance layer, meaning that it is a member-driven approach. So everything beneath, when you are thinking about EBSI, it is being member state driven. So member state decide what smart contracts to use, what's not, what protocols to use, all that stuff. The next one is an API layer, which is accessible for application service providers. So it means that there's a layer with which wallets are communicating, data is being exchanged, all that stuff. Beneath, there is a blockchain. Indeed, there is a blockchain. That is, I don't want to say it is decentralized, it is more distributed. And beneath, there is a technological stack, meaning that there are node operators like myself, and we are hosting that actual infrastructure. It is being geographically distributed among member states, so it's not that it is being hosted somewhere in one central location. So it means that it's if in case of certain problems, like for instance my country might face, it means that EBSI might survive, and being the geographically distributed, it will work, and maybe also have that cyber resilience. When it comes to evolvement of the EBSI, this is how we see where EBSI could be used in the nearest future, given the projects that are up and running, like the C4AO EBSI vector. So EBSI can become a governmental trust anchor. It means that member states can decide to use EBSI as a trust service according to the EIDAS terms. While to use it for PID, it's a bold idea, so let's skip that. But when it comes to trusted issues registries, I mean trust lists, EBSI can complement solutions that member states might decide when it comes to EIDAS implementation, a Woody wallet. So EBSI can become a trust anchor. And as it is being member state driven, not a commercial structure, and also it is distributed, so it is secure, transparent. So essentially, it's a good opportunity for member states deciding what technology to use and on what technology to base the Woody wallet implementation. On the other hand, for the sector demand or certain use cases, we need a specific terms or specific resources. EBSI or EUROPEUM-EDIC as a service provider can become, for instance, can accommodate new use cases. It means that it can introduce new smart contracts, new APIs, whatever the market demands. Or, for instance, can become a qualified ledger provider. So, according to EIDAS, there is a clear definition for that. So, it means EUROPEUM-EDIC at some point might become a qualified ledger service provider. In this one slide, so essentially how we see, and also we as EBSI-NE project, how we see and how we can contribute to the whole ecosystem, and at least these are the goals that we see. So basically, one is to make sure that we are in alignment with the EIDAS 2, meaning that we as a project, we are aiming towards the network structures, security approaches, all of those to meet the high requirements coming from EIDAS. So countries which will decide to use EBSI as a trust service can rely on a reliable network and being driven by member states. We as a project, we are aiming towards 18 validating nodes. What it means, for production grade network, for production, we need those nodes to make sure that when it comes to a technological consensus mechanisms where the actual nodes are voting or downvoting or whatever it is, so there should be a geographical distribution and reliability. So this is how we are contributing to the EBSI ecosystem, as well as dissemination seminars that we are having right now, and also competence centers to support application service providers or the ones willing to join the EBSI network as a node operator, as an application service provider, you decide. So essentially, we as a project, first of all, we will align with the IDAS requirements, provide data validating nodes, and if needed, we can assist if it comes to a non-EBSI-NE project participant, we can assist them as well. This is how our nodes looks in the European Union map. So as you can see, there are plenty of squares around the member states, so it's pretty geographically distributed. Worth mentioning that it is required to host a node, not just plain simply in the data center like AWS or Google or whatever it is. I'm not saying they are bad. It's not about that. But the initial policy or requirements set up by EBP representatives, initially, it was decided that EBSI should be hosted within European Union boundaries. So, or more specifically, for instance, my node is being physically hosted in Lithuania. So, for instance, Howest node is being hosted in Belgium, and that it is really important, at least as an initial step. So every member state at least have a one node, like Piotr already said. So EUROPEUM-EDIC, every EUROPEUM-EDIC member, well, they need to contribute to EBSI ecosystem as well. So every EUROPEUM-EDIC member will have a governmental node, or at least nominate one. So we as a project, we are providing 18 nodes, and we'll provide support if needed, and if anyone else will want to onboard. What is worth mentioning here as a contribution or key pillars. So first of all, just for everyone to have that answer to the question or concern that huge electricity bills, it's like a Bitcoin, all that stuff. So as it is a non-public network, permissioned, so it means that consensus mechanism is based on authority. So only those 18 validating nodes have the right to provide consensus. So from technological perspective, I don't get huge electricity bills, to be frank. Those are pretty normal. Also, as I said, legal compliance and alignment with international standards. For instance, like security. So every node operator is obliged to have an ISO security certificate to be secure. As I told you before, we are planning to build an ecosystem of national competence centers. So every participant in EBSI-NE project or couple of organizations representing one single country will establish a so-called national technical competence center. So with this, we want to provide assistance to upcoming EUROPEUM-EDIC, because they will have a central one, like EBSI has right now, that where first line support has a huge overload. So we are thinking about assisting them and helping them with the requests. And also as it comes to a dissemination of EBSI ideas within countries. So we as an EBSI-NE projects in every member state, we will try to disseminate, talk about EBSI and its beauty and how it can contribute to various use cases, for instance, academic domain. And that's it from my side.
Jonas, before we go to the break, we have a couple of questions from our participants online. I also encourage our participants here, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and state your name, perhaps, and the organization where you're from, and you can ask our speakers. What are the practical steps to be a node provider across Europe? This is a question from an organization in the Netherlands, for example.
Well, initial step here is to get or receive an endorsement from your local EDIC representative, or in case you don't have it, so you should reach out to EUROPEUM-EDIC. Why? You need, EBSI network needs to be sure about who is actually being or becoming validating node. So as a first step, you need an endorsement. Without that, it's no go. The next step is to provision hardware. So, well, when I say hardware, provision resources. Let's call them like this. So you can host it on a cloud or whatever it is. Just with one exception, it cannot be AWS, Google, or whatever it is, Azure. So, because it will break that philosophy of EBSI. It's not that they are bad. I'm not saying that. That's fine. But we should keep our citizen data within the boundaries of European Union. That's the main idea here and behind this requirement. And as a next step, just to prepare the hardware or resources, reach out to EBSI support team, and or even EBSI-NE project as well. So we are open if you need assistance, if you want to onboard, feel free to reach us out, and we will assist you and help you with the technical step. It's not so complicated. And also, please bear in mind, as soon as you will deploy the node, you have endorsement in place, all that stuff, you will need to ISO certify when it comes to security. So every node operator is obliged to have ISO 27K security certificate in place.
The third-party provider of eventually a cloud solution based in the EU would suffice having the certification in that case?
No. Look, there are two layers of it. And if you are a huge organization, please bear in mind. So essentially, if you are, for instance, a university, 1K or 2K person, so it won't be reasonable to certify the whole organization. And that the same goes to data centers. So, for instance, my hardware is being hosted in a data center. I'm renting electricity, internet, all that stuff. So I'm relying on the security certificate in terms of physical access. So how the physical access is being maintained from security perspective. So that part I'm referring to them. When it comes to organizational part, who has access to hardware, who has access to password policy, all that stuff, so it's on me. So I have ISO certificate as well. And if you are a huge organization, so having an organizational unit of 5, 6, or 10 people, which are responsible for maintenance of a node, and certify them. I mean, from organizational perspective, you can have that virtual unit and be certified, and that's it. So instead of trying to certify the whole organization, that can be, well, a bit from budget perspective, huge thing. So it's a way to go and move forward.
All right. Thank you.
First time. My name is Omirots. I'm from Fujitsu. I'm blockchain evangelist. Still exist. We were quite explicit on the differentiation you made between decentralized and distributed. Why would you call it distributed and not decentralized?
Okay, it's coming from EID's perspective, from business requirements. It's not technological. Let's well, when it comes to blockchain, indeed it is decentralized. So there shouldn't be any central authority. However, when it comes to EIDAS, there should be someone liable for problems, whatever they are. So liability falls right now in this room on Piotr, or at some point, to EUROPEUM-EDIC as an organization. So this is why EBSI is heavily centralized, however distributed. So from governance perspective, indeed, it is decentralized. So it's about consensus, like European Union has in place. So it's up to them to decide how they have the separate those voting rounds or voting rights, depending on budget or whatever it is. Nevertheless, it's not about blockchain. Blockchain itself, in EBSI, blockchain is that just a technology ensuring that you don't need to resign anything, as with the typical PKI, the signatures. So blockchain is a backup, not backup, foundation of the EBSI itself. I'm not saying that there cannot be any other protocols, as I said. EBSI as a network of resources distributed along the member states can serve to certain use cases where different protocols are needed. So it's not a problem. Just the bill that will be written to that specific sector will be by EUROPEUM-EDIC. That's why we are coming back to centralized.
Thank you. Jan Lebbe, ING Digital Asset. Question in regards to EBSI to the three. I did not see was a roadmap with timelines and milestones for the future years. Is that present within EBSI and within European?
Well, I'm not so sure whether this question it's for me. I think it should be raised in the upcoming panel because it's a good one and it's overarching. It's because when it comes to roadmap, we as an EBSI-NE project, because it's project, so by definition it has beginning and the end. So the end is going to be soon, to be frank, and also we as an EBSI-NE project, we will maintain the network for a couple of years on top of it, and this is where EUROPEUM-EDIC, with their strategy, they should kick in and support us as a node operators, because we have electricity bills, internet bills, all that stuff. But it's your question. It's about roadmap that should be covered by policymakers, not by me. Yes, it's for Piotr and Pia.
Right. Thank you very much, Jonas.
We have 2 minutes.
We're running out of time. Okay, we'll take very quick question, and then we will go to the coffee break afterwards.
I'm asking about the from Mr. Marov about the sandbox. So far, it was kind of applications were March, April that they are submitted. Will that stay the same given the new context, or does we have some new thoughts in mind, or will it change with the change of job?
No, the sandbox is an action that we have launched, so that is going to be implemented as foreseen, and facilitate contractors. So the contract that we have now is for 3 cohorts of projects. The first one has been already selected. We are now in the middle of the dialogue we have started the dialogue for the second cohort. And the call for the third cohort of projects will be done by the end of this year or early January. So it's early January. So but there is no change regarding this action. It's something which was launched and is not going to.
Maybe I can answer this question.
Okay.
Because you will not answer. When the EDIC was established, the minister, the government has made a declaration of participation of the EDIC, and the declaration was for 3 years. So to contribute means to ensure that the contribution national. We have another factor in natural resources. We apply the several programs for the grant, also for the 3 years. It's concrete what we have in draft. Of course, we are discussing the long-term policy of the future. And so different views and it would be more clear and established to understand the so we have some previous documents, but they should be updated. Probably to reconstruct like everything new technology works.
Which year started in 2024? This year?
If you allow me, there is no ending date of this EDIC. That's the commitment of the 10 member states, which are for 3 years. And then, right, the other, let's say, contribution from the EDIC in terms of time horizon. So this 3 years of time horizon is important, but there is no ending date of the EDIC, so something to last for a longer period.
And of course, you must take into account that it's coming from the public sector is engaged. So we promise the money from the state budget, which is established every year. So we must convince by our activity that we will be efficient and reasonable to invest in execution. But we cannot, the election can change everything.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jonas, for the insightful presentations and also for the concrete responses that you gave our audience. And thanks for everyone who responded. Our next speakers are Daniel Desoy and Robbie Hutik from Howest University, our partners and co-organizers of today's event. Daniel is the research coordinator at Howest and the convener of the Verifiable Credentials Framework within the European Blockchain Partnership. He has led the Belgium National Self-Sovereign Identity Project and has played an important role in EDIC European initiatives. Joining him is Robbie, a security researcher and Web3 engineer at Howest. Robbie has been instrumental in deploying self-sovereign identity solutions at Howest and also working at the Howest Belgian node. Together they will present blockchain's role in digital identity and verifiable credentials. Please join me in welcoming Daniel and Robbie to the stage.
Okay, thank you very much, Ella, and very happy to be here. See a lot of familiar faces also online. So after we have seen a bit the organizational aspect, the work that has been done in the EDIC, the preparation work that has been done by the Commission, the infrastructure that we can rely on, we need also to focus on the use cases. So I will be a bit of the first part, very focusing on decentralized identity, on verified credentials, on digital credentials. But we don't want to give only overview. My colleague Robbie will also dive into the technical details. So all the people that are a bit dying and hoping, we want to see code, we want to see console, we want to see a black screen with little letters, Robbie will take care of that, so no worries. I will be focusing on digital credentials and in education and in social security. But first, a bit proud moment for Howest. So since yesterday, I think, we are up and running with our production node from EBSI, so it's live, so it's a happy moment for us. So thank you, Jonas, for all the support, and also the people of the different government agencies that needed to endorse themselves. So it's a very heavy process, but we are very happy to have that in production and hosting and supporting all those applications. Maybe more nodes will follow on the Belgium level, but we are very happy to be and playing that role. Okay, back to education. Maybe a long time ago for some of people, sometimes maybe less ago. A very happy moment in the life of a human being is his diploma. After 3 years of hard work, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, depending how long you took, you get finally your degree and your diploma. So as we celebrate each 3 years, that aspect of having the achievement, starting a professional career. But of course, why bother? You can buy it online. All those kind of things, all those fake diplomas. You can buy a diploma in China, You can buy an English diploma, a Canadian one, order it, and you get it. And you get something that looks exactly as the thing that you have earned in the last 3 years. Nobody will tell. Now, of course, we have seen that problem a lot of times. So it's emerging, the fake diplomas, the real problem into the whole world. And a lot of projects have already started in the past 10, 20, 30 years to tackle that, mostly on a national level. In Flanders, we try to use and centralize the things on the learning and diploma database. We have also the CV on Europass. All things where centralized solution try to say, okay, upload the documents with you and we're going to give access to other people and we'll try to convince them to say, okay, this is an authentic one. So heavy cumbersome things. So also in the United States, the university is trying to do those kinds of things. Now, of course, that works for the national case. In Belgium, Flanders, that works. But if you cross the border, if you cross a sector border, that doesn't work anymore. So you have a big problem because at the end, it will always be the same case. You have all those systems, but you end up with some guy trying to figure out, I have here a diploma, I have here credentials, is this true or not? I need to translate it from Bulgarian to Dutch, try to hope that that Bulgarian university is real and that it's indeed a real diploma. So that's a lot of cost that is introduced currently today. With all those solutions that we have, it ends up with the poor guy trying to figure out what is the users. Same with KYC and all those kind of things. So you get a lot of paper-based process. Now, of course, we're entering into digital world, and a lot of people are expecting, I want to do this in 5 seconds with my smartphone. Just swipe my diploma, somebody checks it, or a system check it, and I get instantly aspect. So a lot of students are very frustrated if this comes into. I've applied in Erasmus. Why is my application not solved in 5 seconds? That's what I expect in my digital world. Now, of course, there is hope. It's not only, of course, a very negative question, but we have seen in the past things that the building blocks to build really that the solutions are there. We have seen that the standard specifications on verified credentials, a format of digital credentials of credential can be shared, has been shared. We have seen also the new identifiers so that people can identify themselves in the digital world. The decentralized identifiers are maturing again. And also, one of the third aspects, we have seen also that the blockchain can support those kind of interaction more and more. So EBSI, those 3 components have matured and are also ready to be used in those kind of sense. It's not only about future kind of things. We can have the means to end up the paper network and look at it in a different way. Now, of course, one very important component is also needed. You don't have only the technical requirements. You also need, of course, the agreements on what do we transfer, how do we standardize the things. And that's important that Europe has invested the last 20, 30 years into have a clear European learning model. So that is about having the business agree what is a diploma, what is a credential, how do we exchange. So that's, of course, very necessary if you want to exchange information. The technical thing will not drive it, so we can rely on. So for education, it's a bit the perfect storm. You have a technical evolution, you have a business evolution that is now coming together. And it's coming together in a very simple matter, very simple diagram. Seeing the people here, that is not new things, but of course, it is putting the citizen at the very heart of the system. He's the one that will control it. He's the one that will be receiving credentials from an issuer, this university, and he will be or she will be the one that will exchange that to another verifying party. Now, of course, to have ensured trust in that mechanism, because that is 90% of the interaction between a wallet of a holder for a user and those verifying issuers, you'll need, of course, a trust layer. And the trust layer is where the blockchain comes into the part, where EBSI plays into the part. So that is a very simple diagram, but also a very powerful. So you don't need to link issuer and verifier. No need for that. So no complex legal mandates, no complex once only principle or kind of public-private interaction. No, the user will manage it. With the public responsibility, of course, but that's one that he will be using. Now, this is a concept, not a theoretical concept. A few years ago, already EBSI went into the early adopters program, tried to see, okay, how can we test it? Does it really work? Is that magic that really works, or is it just a dream? And in that early adopter program 2 years ago, we showed this works. Interaction between Howest and the University of Bologna, and then going back to the University of Riviera, all those things worked without any seamlessly, of course, a lot of hiccups and technical level, but then again, it proved that we can simplify the life of all the students traveling to another place. Now, of course, not only about testing the things, it's also about creating a market so that all those solutions out there, all the variation that we have, that will be also EBSI conformant. So the EBSI community also very, very much involved in trying to see, okay, solution providers, we have written a lot of specification, we have tried to elaborate it. Can you implement it? Are you conforming that? Are you interoperable with this kind of thing? So that is also what happened in the past years to interact with the community. Because EBSI is not one product, it is in part of an ecosystem. And we try to see that a lot of businesses are also trying to adapt their solution on those kind of things. Now, of course, very nice, but we want more. We need a big lift off. You see, we go from the pilot experience to real production. And that is a big, gigantic step that we need to take. It's not the easy one, because we've seen in the past, I think all the experiences here, a lot of projects fail on this kind of thing. Interesting concept, but how to go mainstream. So that is the challenge that we have. And there's where a lot of the projects now come into orbit. One important project is the EBSI Vector project. Is try to say, okay, how can we move from piloting phase and mature towards production, very specific for social security and for education. What are the missing links that are now needed, that we need to identify on business level, but also on technical level to set that step. And the objectives are, of course, to consolidate all what we have, also motivate a lot of projects and a lot of universities, and try to see what is missing now to have those kind of steps. What is the bigger legal picture? So a lot of things combining. So we are not a large-scale pilot, we are a large-scale implementation project to try to do that last mile between piloting and production. Now, of course, we are looking at very kind of things. So we are trying to see that we have specifications, try to see that we link it to user wallet, to issuers and to verifiers, and try to link it also to business needs. Because in social security, you have a specific context that need to translate in capabilities. What do we need? And social security, to give you an example, you need mandates, you need people acting on behalf of companies or kind of guide. So you need to implement this. Education needs verification. So you need to also implement all those kind of things. Now, EBSI Vector is, of course, a part, and it may be also a bit highlighted by the other speakers. We see a lot of projects now currently moving. So try to see that it's also linked with EBSI-NE, with also the DC for EU, so the large-scale pilots. So you see that all those projects interact with each other. That takes a lot of coordination, a lot of talk, but you need that every project tries to help and get a step on this kind of thing. And of course, the edict, formerly the European Blockchain Partnership, is of course also an important milestone and step in those kind of things. So you see, it's not about only a project doing stuff, it's an ecosystem in movement. Try to see that we have different partners, public-private, collaborate with each other. Now, of course, very interesting story about decentralized identity. Of course, as you all know, there's also that bigger project where we have inspired them a lot, but the European digital identity is also coming. So the EBSI building block with the specification, with all the capabilities that we have, needs to fit into that new story. That new story where the dream, the political dream is clear. I think Michel also made reference to that. See how a European citizen in a self-sovereign identity way, in an empowered way, can share credentials with all the things that he wants. So going from concert tickets to travel tickets to banking details, that is a dream that Europe has to give the people those kind of things tooling. Now, of course, not to go into detail, but we need to position ourselves as EBSI being and all the things that we have done on the decentralized identity to position ourselves towards those kind of things. Because now the large-scale pilots are ongoing. So we see ourselves as EBSI as an important structural building block for them that they can rely on. We will not be the exclusive partner of them. We try to see how can we inspire them towards the future. The decentralized identity wallet or UDI is a hybrid wallet. It will contain centralized and decentralized identity, but we have seen it as our task to inspire them on the decentralized way. How can self-sovereign identity things can involve? There will be certain flows that will be very strictly centralized. The police will not ask you, do you have any kind of things that the claims that you have? They will look at it, of course, in their own systems. They will not say, okay, give me your proof that you have now never been convicted. They will do it themselves. Other use cases will need to rely on users. So we get a complex hybrid system where you need to combine it. But we, as EBSI thing of EBSI Vector, we need constantly to innovate and to give them the way. This is the way that we need to go. So position it also in that sense. In that aspect, it's also very important that the other project and the LSPs, DC4EU, so Digital Credential for Europe, is also focusing on education and social security. That is an EIDAS LSP, and is also introducing the EBSI context, more on what can we implement today, our current capabilities, but also try to see how is EBSI moving. So you see that those projects are interlinked and try to combine the different things, but you see the same easy diagrams where a citizen interacts with verified issuers on education level, but also on security level. So the different Belgian partners also participating. So SMALS is also part of DC4EU, social security, looking at how can we deal with those kind of things. On another level, but that's also for a backup slide, we try to see, okay, how do we match those kind of things, the things that we are putting into production, because we have the ambition to put in production, how can they evolve towards the EUDI context where they will be taken up. So we also try to reflect effectively, will all things be part of the EUDI wallet, or is there also a market that is also EIDAS compliant, but not necessarily EUDI wallet? Still to be seen how the public sector, of course, interact with those kind of things. That is a bit the general story. I hope to have not gone too far away, but of course, look at it and pass the floor to my colleague Robbie. That will give, okay, this is not only an experiment, a nice theoretical thing. How have we implemented? So Robbie, it's yours.
Thank you very much. As my colleague already mentioned, I am a Web3 system engineer. I will go a little bit more into technical detail, though I hope not too much. One of the projects we did with KBC is to digitalize the student ID card. And we wanted to do that by using verifiable credentials issued by Howest, of course, and using a trusted framework. The trusted framework that we chose is, of course, EBSI. In this slide, you can see a little bit about the process flow and setup that we wanted to achieve. The first step that any user always has to do is they have to log in. After that, they want to add their student ID card to their wallet. So they click on that link, and that starts the process of Howest talking to our issuer service, which will render a pre-authorized code. This pre-authorized code will be then sent to KBC, which will render a link for the user to return to. This link is then shown to the user as a QR code or a simple link they can open with their phone. Once they click that link and open it in the KBC app, the KBC app will create a wallet. I believe the software behind it is from Miko, if you're familiar with those. And they will fetch a token using that pre-authorized code that they received from us earlier. With that token, they can then finally fetch the verifiable credential that is signed by our wallet, and our wallet is registered on EBSI. And that credential is then stored in the Miko wallet and shown back to the user in the application. I will show you the same process in another format. The student goes to the web app, The web app talks to the issuer service where we have our wallet that speaks OpenID 4VC protocol. It returns a pre-authorized code. That pre-authorized code is in step 4 sent to the deep link service in KBC. KBC returns a link that's sent back through our web app to the user. Second phase, the user uses that link to open KBC, which then starts a process with Miko, who talks to our API just to ensure an MTLS connection, because that's one of the requirements in a lot of banking systems. That will speak to our issuer service and return the credential. Now, as for the code, I'm a system engineer. I'm not a developer. So if there's any developers in the room, please do not judge too harshly. This is a proof of concept after all. This is the step where we create the issuer, where we get the pre-authorized code, step 2 in this slide. We define the credentials that we want to have signed. We get a personal identifier, which is basically the student ID field. It returns a OpenID string from which we extract the pre-authorized code and send that back as a field in the data to KBC. The next step is when KBC or Miko contacts our API and retrieves a token using that pre-authorized code. Pre-authorized code is sent straight to our issuer service, which then returns a token for a secure connection and the next step. The next step is retrieving the actual verifiable credential, in which we receive the bearer token that Miko previously received from us, and then we send the verifiable credential back to the wallet at KBC. The result is a demo, but yesterday I checked and it's currently offline due to some updates into the OpenID 4VC standard. Note that this project has been done a year ago, so there have been changes in the standards. Instead, I have a video and I hope it will play. Yes, the demo gods are favorable today. So here you see it from the perspective of the user that opens our web app in their phone. So they browse to our web app, and after logging in, they are presented with a simple screen in which they allow access, and then they add the QR code or open the verifiable student ID in KBC. This opens the app of KBC, and it requests that if you want to add it, yes or no. And here you can see the student ID card in the KBC wallet. So one of the things that we want to do for the future is we want to upgrade our wallet backend. As I mentioned, there's been some changes in the standards and the wallet has been upgraded and we need to catch up a little bit. Another thing that we need to do is find verifiers who can scan this verifiable credential and then verify that we are an entity on EBSI and that we are accredited to issue these student IDs. And then we want to, of course, push to production. And as mentioned by my colleague here, of course, we want to do some diplomas in the future, but we're not there yet.
That's also the part where we are, of course, working on in EBSI Vector and in DC4U. We did this with the big Belgian bank. So you see that a lot of partners are already interested to do those kind of things. And of course, being the first, you issue the credential, but you need to, of course, to activate a bigger ecosystem so they can be verified. So we try to have with this project a bit of momentum that everybody can use it. But we are dedicated as OS to say, okay, we want to issue this kind of thing so it can be used in many things. The student ID looked for us very promising because you have a lot of loyalty cards, a lot of discount kind of things that can be used if you prove, are you a real student? And with those other plastic cards, it doesn't work in the digital world. So we need to find ways to improve those kind of things. So that's the way that we want to do. I'm already back to the second one. So that is one of the big use cases that we want to see. And we see this, Howest is of course not the only one, but we see that there's a lot of movement, a lot of pilot university also moving into EBSI Vector, into DC4U, putting this in production, and also having a big eye in what is happening in the EUDI aspect. So that's a bit the overview of the use case that we wanted to give to you.
And here's just some quick questions from the chat. Obviously, we've seen the case for verifiable credentials, and also you spoke about digital identity. We will hear as well about traceability use case from our expert, Stefan. Could you tell more about other use cases under the European blockchain service infrastructures? And are they also far ahead as verifiable credential? And if not, why?
It's about timing, of course. Verified credential, we started, I think, 3-4 years ago. It is a long process. I don't want to hide that kind of thing. Starting decentralized or blockchain use cases requires a lot of gathering, a lot of discussion, a lot of alignment between all the different ecosystem players. I always give that example. 3 years or 4 years ago, we started, okay, we're going to use diplomas. That is the easy case. Just put a hash on the blockchain and we are ready to go. It doesn't work like that. You need to interact with a lot of parties, try to have alignment on business level. The things that Pierre has also mentioned, we also engaged and to see, okay, what is the legal context? What is the IDAS saying about this? What is GDPR? There's all those kind of steps we took, and that requires time. So use cases now also moving into orbit, the IP management and the people that are looking at those kind of things, they are also setting those steps. We see the same aspects in the digital product passport and also carbon credits. They are very interesting in their approach, but they are into a long period. That's not because we are slow or being very not speeding up, but it takes time. It is a thing that you need to invent, and it is also, again, it's an ecosystem play. You need all the actors. So we worked on it 3-4 years, and our main work is try to see how can we mobilize all the actors to try to implement this. But I think the infrastructure is agnostic of use cases. You can use it in many things, but the blockchain part is just 5%, 2% of your work. The rest will be business alignment and try to see how we can use it. Thinking in it, of course, in a different level. So to come back to your question, yes, there are now use cases trying to reach out, mainly from public sector, but we see also growing interest side, what is working on the private level. How can also private initiatives also link it? We see a lot of interest also from harbor, from logistics, try to see, okay, how can we combine those kind of things? So EUROPEUM also need to reflect how can we support those kind of use cases? Because they are the more, you have more interaction on those kind of things. And just purely kind of things. Maybe.
Can I ask, so essentially, it gives me impression that you're just one small step behind of using the same for Yahoo wallet. Is that correct?
Well, we are a bit a step before them, try to see, okay, how can we set the pace? But we hope to see that the evolution in the EUDI and going into the right direction, that they also support verified credentials, that they is going to be used in the DC4U. So we have inspired them the past 3 years, 4 years.
I mean, the hard part when it comes to alignment, what should be the credential, all that stuff. So it's just.
Yeah, that's the work that we did. Let's be clear, because EUDI also doesn't solve that in any technical link. You say, okay, what is a diploma? What needs to be there? That is 3 to 4 years that each sector needs to be doing on those kind of things. So luckily for them to say so, we already did that going there. So independent what kind of technical solution they will need to come back to say, okay, what is a formatting? What is the agreement that the business section has made? So that's a very important step. So again, blockchain part is 5%. The rest of the 95% is about other. That is motivation of the education sector that needs to be. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Robbie, for your presentation. And we will continue the discussion just after. Okay, so our next speaker is Stefan Schwab, Senior Manager at, for Digital Identity and Trust at MSG. Sorry. Stefan has over 15 years experience designing digital ecosystems, specializing in trust services, eIDAS compliance, and decentralized identities. He will be presenting DC4EU, trace for EU blockchain use case for traceability. Please welcome Stefan. Stefan, you have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. And yeah, I'm not DC4EU, but yeah, the name is a bit similar, Trace4You. So we are a project co-funded by the European Union under the Digital Euro program, and we exactly focus on product and document traceability on the EBSI. The project is led by or coordinated by Intesi Group, Vicky Manila, and co-coordinated by MSG, so me. Next slide, please. What we are doing, we ensure the traceability of products and documents across Europe. So we exactly do what Daniel a bit spoke about. So we combine identity and the transaction on the EBSI on the two pillars. One is product and material traceability, which means seafood. This is led by our Norwegian colleagues, Agri-Food led by Hungary, Halloumi led by our colleagues from Cyprus, and Battery led by Sverti from Germany. So this is on supply chain cases, digital product passport subjects. On the other hand, we have data and document traceability, so open wide data exchange, which means the ownership and trade of ownership on intellectual property, academic publishing, so make it easier to act with academic publications led by Croatia. Resume credentials, so it's a bit the next step in the process using the diplomas issued by Rector. It's this resume credentials led by Czech University of Berlin from Germany, electronic register delivery and mail led by InfoShirt. Think about, oh, we have it in eIDAS. Yes, eIDAS makes evident who sent something, who received it. What we are doing is we trace the communication process, so we close exactly this gap. And the last one is the KYC, which is also led by Cyprus. So next slide, please. Electronic ledger and EBSI within the eIDAS ecosystem. Daniel spoke about it. I think we have to clarify those two categories. So one is you use the EBSI as an infrastructure for the EUDI wallet or a qualified trust service, which means it's nothing more, nothing less than a decentralized PKI. It could be for the wallet, but also for issuing certificates, for issuing attestation of attributes, or as an integrity layer for archiving or preservation. It could be also an infrastructure for the trust list, in EBSI terminology called Trusted Issuer Registry, in eIDAS Trust List according to Article 22, or it could be the Trusted Verifier Registry in EBSI terms, or the list according to Article 5b for the relying parties in eIDAS. The security of the ledger will then be proven by a conformity assessment body during the conformity assessment for wallet and trust service. This is one role EBSI could play. The other one is that the ledger itself is the trust service. This is section 11 of eIDAS. In this case, the main infrastructure provided by EDIC would be the core, and on top, the trust service for ledger will provide the infrastructure for traceability, for tokenization, etc. So also I speak about on behalf of Trace4You here. I refer to EBSI vector, which is focusing on this stuff, and this is a bit my other role, doing this subject in vector, where we participate, or where we benefit from in Trace4U. The certification in this case is also done by the conformity assessment body, so that we are sure it's secure, etc. The standard for this subject QTSP for ledger is under construction in CEN/JDC 19. It's under the convenership of Ignacio Lamia from Spain, and I'm the project lead. If you are just referenced in the slides also the different abbreviations, if you are not familiar with them, just use the link and you will find a complete list. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. In Trace4, coming back to the core of Trace4U, we work in the EIDAS framework, so we have to comply with it. What we are doing in Trace4U is not only building the use cases. In the first step, we built an umbrella architecture for all use cases. And as you can see, we use the EBSI services. So like the track and trace API, trusted issue registry, etc., coming from EBSI. But on top, we build what we call the Trace4U toolbox. This means it's a bit of building block, which Trace4U provides and will also remain after Trace4U terminated, so that any company, any user who wants to implement traceability use cases in future may use this toolbox to implement their use cases for traceability. So we provide exactly a building block for the improvement of EBSI. And on top of the EBSI services and the toolbox, we build our use cases. Next slide, please. Let's come to the use cases itself. I saw some colleagues in the online, so if you want to add something, Maud and Mujamin and Yorgos, feel free. First step, as mentioned, product traceability and material traceability. So as you can see here, we combine the identity and the transaction. So you have the product passport, and you with the DID linked to the transaction, you can see also via the product passport the supply chain. As mentioned here, the application scenario: seafood, agri-food, material, and halloumi cheese. Let's go a bit deeper into stuff. Next slide, please. Yeah, the challenges in materials or supply chain due diligence and carbon footprint. So we have a bit deeper into greenwashing. Is it really really compliant? So lack of data verifiability. This is one challenge. The other challenges are the regulatory challenges is given by the European Union, also the battery regulation, and the regulation which requires a digital product passport. What EBSI solves, or what we solve with EBSI, is exactly the authentication of the parties. The identification, I know, can make evident the organization who produces something or which produces something in the supply chain, the third-party verification, the product verification of the product itself, but also the whole supply chain, the timestamping, where we, by the way, also experiment a bit to have a blockchain timestamp compliant to EIDAS, and the integration with the different data spaces like Catena-X is one of the big industry projects. So the impact is reducing compliance risks and costs. And for the what we will reuse is the organizational wallet. So thanks to Vector producing the enterprise wallet, which we then can reuse in Trace4U for certain use cases. Next slide, please. For the digital product passport, just in one picture, as mentioned, we combine the product information with the supply chain. So you have the product passport with the information on the product, on the company, and companies within the supply chain, and with the different traceability events which we combine with the DIDs, we can make evident who was responsible for which part in the supply chain. And you have the digital product passport in the wallet for the identity information and the attestation. So exactly the combination of identity and the transaction. By the way, something you can't do in existing infrastructures. This is exactly the use case where we need a distributed ledger to combine transaction and the identity in an immutable manner. Next slide, please. The seafood tracing, it's a bit similar. So starting from the fisher, getting the salmon out of the sea, the landing side, the storage, the production, the packaging, the air transporter, and up to the end customer who really can prove it's Norwegian salmon and not other one. Yeah, so proof of origin, the authenticity of the product evident not only in the identity with an attestation, but also with the evidence of the whole transaction as it's traced on the ledger. So it makes a verifiable supply chain evident. The tracking in a tamper-proof record, as any on-ledger record, is immutable by design, and at the end of the day, and the advantage for the customer healthier future, we know it's the correct, it's the product it seems to be. Next slide, please. The alignment with digital policies, we have the EU regulations and directives on the supply chain with the obligation to make evident that we follow human rights, that we follow the different legislation to make evident who produced something within the supply chain. We have the European regulation on digital product passport, so there the companies have to provide an digital product passport, and we exactly provide a solution for this, not only for the product passport, but product passport plus the tracing on the supply chain, and the interaction with Catena, X, edX, etc. Ensures the adoption in the industry, and members of Trace4You work in Shenzhen JTC 24 also on the standardization of the product passport. And I think it's an open secret that also in the blockchain standardization we collaborate with JTC 24 so that also those subjects are covered. In the European standardization, we don't have only the solution at the end of the day, but also mandatory European standards for the implementation and the certification. Next slide, please. Yeah, let's come to document and data traceability. So next slide, please. Similar to the product, but here we don't focus on the supply chain. In this case, we focus on classical verifiable credential use cases, but also the combination with transactions on the ledger. Next slide, please. Yeah. What challenges do we have in the creative industries and on copyright? So it's a bit complicated, slow, and it's inaccurate and expensive to make evident who owns a song, who owns a film. Is it really the authentic one, etc. So especially in the age of generative AI, it becomes more and more complex. And so it's, on the other hand, we have the issues with data and identity silos, which we try to solve. What EBSI provides is the authentication of the parties. I know the owner, it's clearly identified. I also identify the one who wants to buy. I can translate the ownership into a digital twin, which is nothing more, nothing less than a non-fungible token, which is issued in the EBSI, and in the token you can combine with the DID so that we clearly make clear who owns something and also can make it evident on the ledger. So we can have an automation of licensing and remuneration in this way, and at the end user-centric data, because if it's in the wallet, it's controlled by the user only. So the impact is for the creative industry, clear ownership, efficient processes in real time, and the evidence of the identity itself. Next slide, please. So this makes it a bit evident what we are doing. So the creators credential, the clear identification of the ownership of the creative content based on the international standard content code, so which is referenced in the attestation, the attribute, and the at the end of the day also the tokenization of the media combined with the DID from the wallet, which is then also referenced in the attestation, so that you have the direct combination of who owns something, who bought it, who owns it now, and the ownership represented in a token. So which makes fraud difficult, because in this case you have to manipulate the token on an immutable ledger. It can become quite hard or quite difficult. Next slide, please. Resume credentials. This is a bit the next step in the process. After you got your diploma from Vector, you want to apply for a job. And the issue we have in the companies is currently fraud, so that people apply with and say, oh, I have this diploma, I worked for this company, worked for this company, and for this company. And after 2 years, you identify, oh, they never had a diploma, and they also never worked for those companies. This is what we avoid with Trace4U. So we create a complete resume credential which contains the different diplomas, your testimonials you may have gotten from former employees as micro-credentials in this container, so that when somebody applies with this, we can really check, is this really correct, yes or no? Okay, so clear. Similar, so the same here, you present and you can make it evident that you can see, okay, who was the TAO, who was the trusted issuer, and who owns the verifiable credential at the end of the day. And in case of EIDAS, is it really a qualified attestation? Who is the qualified trust service provider who gave them the qualification, etc. That you have the complete trust chain. Similar in pub EAA, who was the pub EAA, who appointed them, so that you have the complete evidence. So solving fraud subjects in HR and also make it more efficient as it's provable in real time. Next slide, please. Yeah, achievement and next steps. So what did we reach? So we defined the requirements for the umbrella architecture, product and document traceability. Then we now started the demonstrators, which we will provide by the end of November for the product passport, seafood, agri-food, halloumi, but also for the document and data traceability stuff. So as mentioned, e-delivery, resume credential, KYC. And then we will start in January with the end user piloting and collaboration, and go deeper into collaboration with other projects and countries to make evident it works not only for Norwegian seafood, but maybe also for Finnish seafood, or not only for Hungarian agri-food, but maybe also for Spanish wine, for example, or not only for resume credentials, but also for other stuff. Yeah. Interoperability and testing with other projects, especially with Vector concerning the enterprise wallet, but we also work together with the Dutch Blockchain Coalition on an interoperability profile for digital product passport. So this will also be an added value coming out of Trace4U, so that we achieve at the end of the day comprehensive infrastructure, support a comprehensive infrastructure for EBSI cross-border use cases for industries and public authorities which really work. So the music industry is clearly interested in this business case, as well as proven interoperability with EBSI and cross-ledger. And additional subject coming out from colleagues of Trace4U is also a proposal how to improve the scalability of EBSI with additional networks on top of the infrastructure provided by the member states, so that we have EDIC provided the governmental trust, and on top we have the secure and proven networks for the trust services for Ledger, maybe providing tracing or hopefully providing tracing in future for the industry in Europe. Thanks a lot, and waiting for your questions.
Thank you very much, Stefan. We have a couple of questions from the chat. One is straightforward. Is the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure GDPR compliant?
Due to the fact that there is, first of all, no certification, no official certification for GDPR compliance, I assume yes, because at the end of the day, it's the obligation for any service provider to avoid storing not necessary or not wanted data in any system. I think you refer to the immutability of ledger, but for this we know the technology of blacklisting, which means that the data are deleted logically. It's a procedure we know from any worm storage, so for advanced read-many storage, soft worms widely used in the industry, which are also accepted as GDPR compliant, by the way, and where we go the same approach. We delete the data logically so that they are not retrievable anymore with cracking the whole system. But if you crack the whole system, you have a much bigger security and liability issue, and exactly this approach is accepted by the regulative authorities as GDPR compliant. So long story short, I clearly answer your question with yes.
Another question surrounding the DPP, and you've showed one of the digital product passport use cases via Trace4EU. Can EBSI be a preferred or even indispensable building block for DPP solutions?
I think from my perspective, looking from the European glasses on the stuff, it should be a preferred building block. The reason is, as mentioned, you have EDIC providing the main infrastructure, the main nodes, and on top you have the applications, which means if you use EBSI, you have governmental trust anchor by default, because the main nodes always provided by the member states. This means it's nearly impossible to cheat, because if somebody cheats with in the additional network, the main nodes will always identify this. At the end of the day, if you validate the network, you will identify, oh, somebody cheated. Yeah, this is the clear advantage of a ledger, of a distributed ledger, that this is practically that cheating without notice is practically impossible. So long story short, EBSI is a preferred solution, not only for digital product passports, but from my perspective, also for the UDI wallet and any qualified trust service, due to the fact you have governmental trust anchor by default. This is something property you have with no other solution in the EIDAS ecosystem and also other ecosystems.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for your insightful presentation on behalf of Trace4EU.
Thank you.
And please stick with us for more questions coming in the Q&A session. So please, you're welcome to stay on the line for us for that session as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would love to welcome our speakers for the panel discussion that we have on the future of FC blockchain in Belgium and Europe. I will All right, so thank you very much for being here, joining me for this session and conversation for distinguished speakers and experts. We have already introduced Pierre Marot and also Daniel to previously, and now it's my pleasure to introduce Ebrahim Tam. He is the strategy lead for EBSI-Vector, a colleague in EBSI-Vector. He's also a political scientist specializing in blockchain and AI public governance. He has led many EU-funded projects and widely recognized for his research on blockchain and governance. Next, we also have Ricardo Simoes. He is the executive director of INATBA, the International Association for Trusted Blockchain Applications. Ricardo focuses on aligning industry needs with the regulatory frameworks, advancing interoperability and standardization, and having the conversation between public and the private sector. He works in EU-funded projects like Blockchain, strongly complements EBSI's goals and work. So thank you all for being here with us today. So Pierre, I'd like to start with you. So the European Commission has played a key role in the journey and the involvement of the European blockchain service infrastructure. Could you tell us about the next critical steps from perspective of the Commission? How we will continue this growth journey with EDIC, European, but also the Commission role in all of this as well.
Yes, thanks. So the first key step is to ensure that EUROPEUM becomes a version. And your colleagues are working hard to make it possible, and we are on the track. And then in relation to this operationalization, an important step is to make EBSI its production phase, as it was stressed by the different speakers today. And you have seen that at use case level, there is already a bunch of projects, but the other stakeholders that will be happy to develop an application on top of EBSI. So that's what matters in terms of future step for EBSI, and as a particular family of use case,
some of the people in the room actually cannot hear you, so I think we're going to use a microphone for this session. Yeah. We've been trying to avoid the microphone.
No, you cannot.
I need some help. Sorry. No.
Yes, they do.
It seems that benchmarking your micro settlement, but I'm sorry for that, but now I hope that you can hear me well. So I was saying that one of the key milestones is, of course, the operationalization of EUROPEUM, ensuring that EBSI can start this production phase that will create even more, let's say, traction on this project. And through the different presentation, all of already explained why it is a unique initiative. And as an important element that I see for CFC and EUROPEUM-EDIC and its use case would be clarification that have started to be addressed by Daniel in particular, but also by Stephen, about how EBSI can contribute to the EU DI IDAS implementation. That's something important. And then, of course, we can see a bit longer how the use of decentralized technology or distributed technology can play for, let's say, orchestrating different data, contribute to different type of services, but in particular for what concerns AI. This is also something which is addressed through a different project today, but we could imagine that an initiative like EUROPEUM can help for the coordination different member states, give access to data of public administration of public services in order to contribute to those data space and those in a way which will ensure more direct control of the data, more integrity of the data, more authentication process, that will contribute to also develop new AI models specifically for public services. Then, and it was particularly addressed by the presentation on Trace for EU, we see that the contribution of EUROPEUM in future steps is not only for public services, it can be also to facilitate other type of use case which concern also private organization, like the one I illustrated through the different supply chain of digital passport implementation.
Thank you very much, Pierre. I'd like to turn to Ifrit now. So trust and alignment among member states are critical for blockchain adoption at scale. We heard about all of these great projects which are in the piloting phase. But from your perspective, what practical steps can be taken at the European level, but also at the national level, to build that trust and foster alignment blockchain initiatives that we are seeing from these different projects?
All right, thank you, Ala. Maybe first we need to sort of flesh out, is there really a problem among member states in terms of the bringing the blockchain use cases in the public sector to the implementation level? And for that, we actually have some data. Research was conducted by Joint Research Council that recently is published there. And when they monitored across European member states in the implementation of different implementation of the use cases in the public sector area, they found out that among close to 300 use cases, only 17% they managed to go to the implementation level, and around 60% of the use cases they stopped on the pilot. So this tells us something about there is especially on the member state level, there is an issue of bringing the blockchain use cases to the full implementation. And when you go to the decision makers, technology developers, and talk with the stakeholders, you get the impression of that the issue is not about the trust with technology or like the perceived benefits of the technology is going to bring to the different areas of application. It's mostly about on the institutional level. Institutional level of the factors they play a role about bringing the full implementation. And of course, in the European case, when we talk about institutional level, we most of the time talk about EU level, the European level of the governance. So with that, what could be the European level of governance sort of contribution for scalability or the helping these use cases to bring for the full implementation? I think I can think of the four the crucial areas that they can help, which certain efforts that they're already been going on. The first part is about the standards. So what will be the standards they will be in place on using the blockchain and different type of blockchain solutions, technologies that they found a new meaning when they are implemented in the blockchain there. So and how they are going to be translated in different use cases. So the standards I think is the first area. The second part is about regulations. So when we talk about, especially on the public sector, this is not happening in a vacuum, right? So we have already the regulations in place that they are regulating how we transact in the data, the protection of data, GDPR, EIDAS, and a bunch of new regulations that they're currently being developed by the European the Union and by the European Commission. So the public sector organization, they need clarity. They need clarity about how their solution they will be compatible with the regulatory framework. And in that regard, the efforts by the European Regulatory Sandbox that they're playing a really important role. It's one of the participants in those dialogue meetings. I can clearly see that how it helps for the technology developers to understand the sensitivities and the interpretation of the regulators. But regulators, they can also learn about the implementation or the innovative solutions that they're developed by the tech providers. So there's definitely an important added value there. Third part is about interoperability. It was mentioned a couple of times today, but it's a clear issue for the public sector officials there. How the decentralized blockchain-backed solution will be compatible with the existing systems in place and with the new systems of transactions that they're developed at the EU level. So how all of this will come together. And I think the fourth and the most important ingredient, component it is needed, it is a trusted infrastructure, a trust anchor for the blockchain infrastructure, a governance system that's compatible with the European level of governance. And here, of course, we can talk about the EBSI blockchain and EUROPEUM. So I think these are the four areas that are already the efforts that they're going on. But once these are flesh out and once that they are fully ready to support for the implementation, we will see a quick uptake and scaling up of the use cases.
Thank you very much, Evren. Daniel, I would like to ask this to you as well, as somebody who's been working in self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials. You're the convener of the use cases here, particularly through the EBSI Early Adopters Program and also EBSI Vector. From your perspective, as Efren said, standardization and adoption and basically scaling is being an issue. How can we address them? And how can key sectors like education or healthcare basically be part of this process?
This is, of course, a very difficult question and an answer that takes time, of course. But indeed, those are the key factors. You need a standardization within a sector to say, okay, these are the business agreements, this is how we will communicate with each other. We understand the same aspect. If that's lacking, then it's very hard to implement anything in healthcare or in education. So you need to define an agreement. So that takes time. Education took 30, 40, 50 years about agreeing those kind of things. So put that also in perspective that this is a long duration kind of thing, but standards are needed. Now, of course, those are the business standards. You need also stable, mature technical standards. When we tried to introduce the verified credential aspect, it was already version 1, but even when implementing, we saw that there were a lot of things lacking. There's not really version 1.0 production ready. It was 0.5 or 0.6. You need to put a lot of effort in those kind of things. So we do call that, try to communicate the community, how can we mature all those kind of standards. And that gives also a lot of credibility to the market. It's not about a pilot or experiment, it's something stable. You can use it with trust, because all the organizations lack time. So they want to implement something that's stable, it's mature, that gives them an advantage or give them a stability of the coming 5 to 10 years. So scalability, we have now interacted with a lot of early adopters, and now comes the second group. Second group that will be harder to convince, that's not the happy innovators that want to jump on everything. No, there are people that are critical to say, okay, why is it needed? So you need to go into another orbit. And then, of course, you will be also facing the ones that only will be forced by strong regulation. We need to do this. It's obligatory. So we need to pass those 3 areas. Now we are entering from early adopters to bigger implementation scale to do this kind of thing. Of course, regulation is needed, and that's also why we interact heavily with the EBI people, try to help them, try to support them, try to see that they also introduce new things, because at the end, that will be the guiding principle to see what kind of credential will I use in Europe, and that will be very important. And that's also coming back to what Mathieu Michel said at the beginning. You, of course, those kind of projects also need to see the future, and to see the vision, because also very tentative to say, okay, let's use the thing that we know, that we work today in our dedicated context, and don't go into experimentation. And of course, you are building future, you are doing things on 5 to 10 years, so you need to adopt kind of things. Yeah? And what worries me the most into the old solution is about the scalability. The world is getting more and more complex. It's not about the controlled interaction between me as a citizen and one government, and we can control that kind of flow. No, it's about the credentials that flow from sector to sector, people to people, without you knowing before what is the flow of the interaction. We had a lot of interesting discussion with social security people to say, okay, we're gonna design all the flows, and then we say, okay, but those are maybe 1% of the flows. The real intensive use is when I use my social security credential in a context that you don't control, that you don't define, but it's very useful for me as a citizen. So we need to think on those kind of things. And that's, of course, another mindset I'm trying to see. But at the end, EBSI needs to be a mature partner in this, and therefore the edict is very important. Have that credibility, have that maturity to interact with all those partners. Because at the end, big companies are asking, how can we interact? Who is now to talk with? Is that an individual project? No, it will be the edict that needs to take part in those kind of things. So all the things that Evry mentioned, you need to combine that with the perfect timing, but now try to think, link all those things together.
Thank you, Daniel. Ricardo, turning to you as the Executive Director of BINASRA, you worked and you focus on building bridges between public and private sectors. Let me ask you, what role should private companies play in supporting the scalability of blockchain, particularly through initiatives like European Blockchain Service Infrastructure? What role do you see that they should play in this new initiative, new legal entity, EDIC? How do you see that from an association perspective?
Look, I think that I have more questions than I have answers. I think also in this ecosystem, perhaps that's the normal thing, because we are talking about a nascent technology, we are talking about innovation, we are talking about tackling. We are actually talking about tackling today's problem, but perhaps we are not seeing the problems that lie ahead and for which blockchain can be very useful technology and can be the preferred technology to tackle. And here today we heard about a couple of them, but I think that to stress that blockchain makes sense for cross-border. Blockchain doesn't make sense for national vision that makes sense eventually a classical database or something like that. Blockchain makes sense for enabling composability, enabling building on top of that. And it was very interesting to hear from Stefan that is the perspective, right? That is the perspective where Traceable EU and other projects, EBSI is building on top of that. What is a reflection from our side is, where do the private sector that is doing parallel innovation and it's going up there, how do they play currently on the EBSI developments? Where do they stand as a stakeholder that will be users or eventually builders on top of that infrastructure? Where do they sit today? What is the role? Because I heard today also there's a lot of interest And I can definitely state that from in our perspective, from hearing from our members, from our company members, of engaging with EBSI and the EDIC Europeum to, on one hand, today facilitate the experience, the know-how, and knowledge they acquired on other projects, on other, eventually on other regions of the world, that they can actually be this knowledge conveners to help in this very particular moment of the transition into production. Because that is what we want, right? What we want is to go into production, to scale from the pilot, the pilot phase, and to actually engage the different member states to adopt the EUROPEUM-EDIC, to be this main infrastructure where public sector services, digital public sector services, can be delivered in Europe. So again, as I said to you, where we discussed, I have more questions. So I think that is so crucial that private sector would now, in this moment of transition, be consulted on how we can definitely move this into production, because they are interested, they are willing to provide guidance, knowledge that can constitute a very important base of know-how for the next steps. That I'm sure of. That is not a question. Now, of course, for the representatives handling EDIC, currently, that is a question. At INAPA level, we are ready to support that, to be able to facilitate that. So please use us. Perhaps I will stop for now, but perhaps I didn't address completely the question. I wanted to also mention in terms of standardization. I think European Commission through two grants regarding empowering blockchain and DLT standardization. I'm speaking about Blockstand and C block as also even a boost in terms of having standardization experts like Stefan, of course, their team. So having a boost in terms of the standardization needs, the detection in terms of gaps that need to be addressed for a stakeholder like EBSI, which is one of the main stakeholders. I think that, and a proof of that, that is at Blockstand we did a survey, and from SME respondents, there was a question that steered my attention, which was regarding which standards should we prioritize? Horizontal standards on blockchain and DLT, or industry standards? And the answer was horizontal standards by 36%, and industry standards by 28%. They need to go together. We need to eventually advance, to try to advance in a more faster way. We need to drive the knowledge from the industry participants onto an infrastructure that we want to be pan-European, and of course also pan-international. It makes sense only if we think of it not at a European level. How can, in the future, connect internationally with other similar public sector infrastructures? So perhaps I will pause here for now.
Thank you, Ricardo. I think I want to come back to you, Ephraim, and to what you've been saying about interoperability and cross-border interoperability. I think it's a critical topic, and it's also one of the challenges that we're seeing at the vector we're trying to address. So, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges that we're having there in achieving this kind of interoperability across member states, especially in the setting of the projects that we have? For example, we have the business registries, we have the education use case, and we're working on the interoperability. So,
all right. It's difficult to give a straight answer. Oh, okay, this is the biggest interoperability challenge, because I think each one of them that they're challenging and they also influence each other. But here we can refer to an EU level of work has been developed as part of the Interoperability Europe Act, and how it provides us certain pillars that they need to be addressed to achieve interoperability in data exchange in a cross-border setting. So what we have there, we have the four core pillars. So the first one, we have the legal dimension. We have the organizational dimension, we have the semantic dimension, we have the technical dimension. Each one of them that they are, the challenging, each one of them, they find a new meaning depending on the area of application. So if you are, for example, talking about education area of using or talking about the interoperability, there are, for example, already accreditation standards in place in the European higher education there. So how will the standards, verifiable credentials, let's say that they are developed as part of the EBSI vector the use case, they will be compatible with the existing accreditation standards in place in the higher education. And this is just coming from the use case. Maybe it speaks mostly for the semantic, the level of interoperability. We are talking about legal interoperability. So we are national level sensitivities, rules in place, and these are more prominent if you're talking an area of like social security. So right, like this, each member state, they have the actual final say in managing their social security policy. So then we are talking about a more difficult type of issues, regulatory issues that they need to be addressed when we are talking about interoperability. Technical interoperability, again, it is part of maybe the standardization of the issue, like what type of standards they need to be in place there. Depending on the innovative solutions, also there needs to be the continuous efforts of the reflections of the standards. And they cannot only be limited to the Europe, also they need to be able to compete with the global level. That's definitely fair. And of course, the organizational level of the interoperability. Like we see, especially in the public sector, different levels of the sensitivities and risks in the bureaucracy of the introducing something new. So, and here, again, different countries, different institutions, they have different sensitivities. So in that sense, it is not about, okay, we now set the standards, go with it. It's just a starting of it. And what Europe is doing actually just, setting the playing field. All right, we need to address these pillars there. And how it's going to be addressed, it's going to be through the participation of different stakeholders, discussion, and finding consensus as a common points of working together points.
All right. Thank you, Ephraim. So perhaps my last question is for Pierre, asking about the different standards, the different regulations that are coming from the Commission. Of course, the Commission sets the scene for member states when it comes to regularizing technologies, and also we've seen that with the ESPR, Digital Product Passport. We've seen that with the IDES2, and how that affects basically public services. So the question is about how do you plan to coordinate all of these different regulations to make to streamline basically the services for public citizens and also for European economies? Perhaps that's a question that will take in a few words. How
in a few words. Few words, yeah.
I don't know. No, actually, this is key question, but a difficult one. And first things, in terms of regulation, we normally at EU level, we do not regulate technology. So, we regulate different usage or different activities. And some can be more closely related to a family of technology. So, as an example, with the MiCA regulation, we do not regulate blockchain, but we regulate the crypto asset or investment, or let's say services for crypto asset investment. And of course, everything which is linked to crypto asset is very close to blockchain, but we do not regulate blockchain. In EUDI regulation, we do not also regulate directly specific technology or specific architecture, but when we implement the regulation, normally the regulation is technology neutral, but it is when we implement the regulation, particularly the implement act, we have to make reference to existing standard. And one of the key issues is indeed some standards are more advanced than others, or more, let's say, related, used as part of legacy system. And it was this point was raised by Ian, but this is something which is key when we think about FC, but blockchain in general, is that in Europe, we have a lot of legacy systems which are performing, which are already delivering a certain level of services quality in terms of services and trust in the services. So one of the challenge for the future uptake of wide adoption of MC is that we provide enhanced services, which can be either in terms of cost efficiency or more resilience or whatever. But it is, and it is in this context, it's also difficult to establish what is exactly the cost or the price of trust or enhancing trust. So that's what makes the question difficult. But to come back to your question, I mean, we have no, of course, we have different ways to coordinate between ourselves when a new regulation is issued at European level, but you cannot, you have to consider the regulation for what it is. And you cannot dream that there will be a regulation that will say, okay, you need to use this technology or that one or something else. Normally, the approach is to be more technology. But in terms of maturity and standardization, it's true that one of the challenges that we face now with the CMC, but blockchain in general, is that those standards are not yet mature. And this is why there's a work on standardization, which was flagged in my presentation, but also in the intervention of Ricardo and the advisory, for example, in those projects, not the sole actors, but it's an important part. And the different projects which were presented today as part of their task, they need also to contribute to standardization. This is something that we are currently discussing with them for the standardization concerning the default credential, for instance. So this is what is important. But I mean, to expect that everything will be free and will result about, let's say, okay, you can use more blockchain as a technology more than the user is something that I cannot commit too much.
All right, thank you very much. I think we've reached time basically for this panel. So yeah, no, thank you all for your insightful interventions and the answers. And now I would like to open the floor for the Q&A, basically make this session more interactive with our experts. And you can ask also, we have Jonas and we have Piotr also with us here today, Stefan hopefully also with us. So I'd like to open the floor for our attendees here, but also online. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write it down in the Q&A tool or in the chat so we can answer them. All right, start.
You said that you have statistics about reasons why.
Could you please first just state your name, your organization, but also for everybody to hear you speak louder.
Jan Lebbe, ING Digital Lead. You said there were statistics about reasons why various pilots, etc., were not implemented for different dependencies for different roles. Do you also have information about the 17% of the use cases that made it towards implementation? What were the drivers of getting towards this, towards implementation, and the kind of use cases, the sectors where they were implemented?
Thank you. So first of all, this study has been conducted by GRC, so you can go to the report and you can read and see the details of this. But in the one part of it about the use cases, we see them mostly they are in the general public services, and if I remember correctly, the second one was on the education domain. But actually the variety of the different areas of application is quite a lot. In terms of the reasons of it, so this actually speaks to current PhD projects conducted by Kai Löwen, that I'm one of the co-supervisor of this project. And in that part, we have asked to the public sector organization, especially trying to understand institutional dynamics. So there are a couple of the elements they play into role. It's very difficult to say that okay, this really plays a role, but the availability of the funding for the testing and at least to a certain level of the bringing a certain level of implementation, that plays a role. The involvement of the decision makers and the policy support seems to be playing a role, especially at the early stages. We have seen very promising, interesting cases. They just stopped because the people on the let's say on the government level of it, because they left the position, and then it did not turn out to really in the content of it. So clearly there is an element of the involvement of this political government will. It plays a role on the implementation level. What are the compatibility with the existing system is in place. So we can still speak about the interoperability the level there. That plays a role. So in that sense, why we see more implementation on the general government education areas, because we already have certain systems in place there. So maybe you can read it as a sort of low-hanging fruit. And the same thing as well, I think EU level, why there was an emphasis on focusing on education domain. We already have certain things in place. So it will help us at least to sort out some of the challenges that we are talking about in transferring in a blockchain the back end of the system there. So Daniel made a great point there. These things, they take time. And it's not only about the plug and play of systems. It's really involved this institutional level, already things that they're in place. And in every step of the way, it's like a fog of war is it's being the remote, right? You understand, oh right, this could be in the practice. Oh, this is how it works in practice. So again, these are coming to some earlier ways of looking, the what works, what it does not work. And this is in terms of the research, this is still an ongoing part, the recent part of it. I hope in time, it's more in use cases, more research is going on, that we have a more, the better, the fuller picture there. But my, the more, the personal conviction is right now, thinking different global type of research that's going on, the institutional factors, it seems to be the main drivers. It's not about whether this technology is or good or bad. It's not about do we trust the government, no, it's really figuring out how it's going to fit to our institutional current systems of the trust. I think that's the main challenge.
Moving roots from Fujitsu. Many of the use cases we have seen today might become a bit too loud. Many of the use cases we have seen today are also done by private parties, by commercial organizations. We had some discussion on whether or not EBSI-NE should be open for private companies and how the collaboration should look like. But is it something that is done proactively? If you look at traceability, many companies have traceability solutions, and taking it a bit further and perhaps stealing a question from Jan, many transactions also have a payment leg. Is it also going to be developed on European, on EBSI. We're also going to implement CBDCs for stable coins. We're going to compete not only with small and large commercial organizations, but also with the financial industry, with banks. Who dares?
This is something that's
a dangerous one. Huh? Okay, Piotr, I see that you are brave enough.
Also to mention that the banks are doing quite amazing projects.
That's a good question.
No, answer it.
But I think that for me it's obvious that we should avail the progress in technology which is availed by the private industry without any doubts. Private industry is faster and smarter than it is obvious. But of course till now we had a problem to communicate with the let's say in general with the crypto world, because the most of many of market players in the crypto world was against of the contact with the regulators, with the state, etc. So it and both sides made a problem. So the many central banks in many countries has a problem with CBDC now, today. Many regulators had a problem with crypto assets. So we had a message from the United States that that Gary Gensler is for dismissed, and we can make some hopes about the movement of the crypto assets world, because the tokenization of the asset is something which can change the economy. But if you are talking about the current emerging issues, I think they are still few issues which can help join our efforts. The one is almost obvious, are the identification systems, because we have the stable old, say old-fashioned, it's not so long, but stable old centralized systems of the electronic identification systems. We have some hopes about the EIDAS-2, but in the same time we are observing on the market a lot of efforts from the private market about identification systems which are used in DeFi system, DeFi businesses, for example. Some of them are very interesting and be availed by the public sector. So it is an example where the private sector can be faster. Because we are discussing last 2 years about the wallets, about the regulation of the RFA, which is negotiated on the let's say regulators level, state regulators level. But in the meantime, they are the interesting example of the use cases, maybe not in Europe, maybe in Africa or Asia, where the identification system are very efficient and very smart. It can be available, maybe by the public sector. It is one side of the issue. Another issue, which is probably where we can make the joint efforts, is the issue of the cyber security, because it is traditional responsibility of the states, because we have the national security issues and a lot of possibility to invest in from the people who care about the national security, which wants to make some obligation for the private sector, which can make some arguments how to invest, how to develop it. So I think we can make it together. It's a very important issue.
Thank you.
So some examples.
Thank you.
No, I just want to remark that I don't want the audience to leave the workshop with the idea that the industry is excluded. In the use case presented by Daniel, when you share your diploma, in many cases, or accreditation for lifelong learning, or something like that, in many cases it is to have a job application or something like that. For the job application, in many cases, it can be a private company, which would be the one interested to verify if the information is reliable or not in a modern, let's say, digital way. Something which is much more secure than exchanging a PDF file, for instance. So it's also to answer to your question, to your remark, Ricardo. If you are thinking about lifelong learning, for instance, many of the players are also private actors and not big university. So, but if the model has been, let's say, adopted by a large number of universities across Europe, and that the trust is there for the student to then follow lifelong learning, it will help all those sector players to use EBSI. Now, then you're right that the same services, including at the infrastructure level, could be provided by a private consortium or a public blockchain or whatever we can imagine. But here it's the specificity of EBSI that we try to bridge is the current organization of different services, public services in Europe, in particular for authentication or for the accreditation or all type of things, with the decentralized model introduced by blockchain and other websites. And the fact that we can rely on a sovereign decentralized infrastructure is also an important element. Otherwise, there is always a risk that we move from a model where it is big tech, which are unfortunately not European one, which control most of the digital services, to a more decentralized services, but which is no more much controlled by European players. So this is a bit the path that was taken when we launched EBSI and the specific use cases. This is a project we have in mind. But of course, now, today, private organizations are excluded from the membership of EUROPEUM, but they are not excluded from future partnership, depending on the type of use case that we want to implement. And I will finalize my presentation by stressing another use case that we have for anti-counterfeiting measure, which is implemented with UNPO offices, which actually combine EBSI with permission, potentially with other blockchain, including permissionless. And the added value of the EBSI model is for the authentication of the brand owners of a given product to check that product is not counterfeited. So it's already something which open perspective about internationalization or the mix of EBSI with other solutions, and also the mix between public authorities and private organizations.
Just one remark. I'm a private organization, actually hosting and also essentially as a commercial organizations, we participate in EBSI-NE projects as well. It's not that we are making decisions in EUROPEUM-EDIC, it's not about that. But when it comes to participating in EBSI as a private sector, we are participating, because if you listen to Stefan's presentation when it comes to choice for you, and if there is a specific demand coming from a specific industry, like for instance automotive, this is where, at least I as a node operator, I'm looking forward to something like this, like a industry-driven use cases where it can be commercialized. I mean, what Daniel presented, like student AP diploma, let's be honest, it will be for free forever. And it should be funded somehow by EUROPEUM-EDIC, by member state, or whatever it is. So at least basic expenses should be covered by member states. When it comes to commercial stuff, so it can be a commercial stuff, and you can earn not profit at least, while you can at least survive. So EBSI as a platform, as foundation, right now we are building foundations. So it is for free. European Commission invested heavily. EUROPEUM-EDIC most likely will invest even more at some point. But when we will reach that momentum, a true belief among member states. So I think commercial organizations or industry will come and also reuse what EBSI can propose, like trust model, network, all this. But that's the moment when it can become a commercial one.
So can
I said something wrong, I guess.
No. I just want
Fire
to be honest. I do believe that it will not stay free forever. The data is free. That's where the private endeavor can make value on top of the data, and that's why it's so important to, from this point, to acknowledge the need for having the guardrails to connect with permissionless and other blockchains where that value can be created. EBSI being the trusted anchor, and of course, guaranteeing that the data is reliable, and of course, the user, the owner of that data, to being able to determine and participate in the economics of that value that is created. That is the power of actually blockchain, right? Is where we can, and you touched the question about money. I didn't want to be the one talking about money, but the question is that. So one question is the current idea, EBSI, and I would say the Europeum-EDIC. Is there a tokenomics, token economy on top of that? No, and it shouldn't have. That can be brought by the private sector. That needs to be brought by the private sector. But since we mentioned funding, it's important that we see also in terms of roadmap. The companies are struggling. Companies that are for 3 years early adopters are struggling with some of the time span for this development. And it's important, it's crucial that we actually, if we want to have European companies building on top of the Europeum-EDIC, it's important that we address the question about how we are going to fund that innovation for the SMEs and for even medium companies that want to, will be the ones creating the value out of this innovation.
So that's fine. Practically, for example, Trace for EU, how did that establish? Was this driven by Norwegian government? Was this driven by EBSI? Was this driven by private industry? For example, Norwegian seafoods. Who was the driver behind putting that on Trace for EU? And also, who was funding this?
Yes, if Stefan is online.
Stefan, can you hear us? No? Okay.
I mean, clearly it was, first we are at pilot level, then it was an open call for proposal funded by the Digital Europe program, where, of course, different stakeholders which were already around the EBSI initiative has come to a consortium which submitted a proposal, and this is the way it was selected. So there was no, and of course, this was related to internal discussion in each member state, but the proposal was not made by the Norway administration or the equivalent in another country. It was made with the stakeholders active in Norway, knowing that for Norway it's something important. And probably they have had discussion with the representative of Norway that was in the EPP, but it was not a specific decision of the Norway government or administration. So the process was open, and then as we formed this type of project at European level, there was a consortium which was created to make a proposal. But it's true that since the project has to be strictly using, there was condition for using the EBSI, most of the participants were already in the EBSI
au système environnemental. But maybe that's indeed correct. Yeah, but those are a bit the first generation of use cases, EBSI driven. So within the EBSI ecosystem, EBP, what kind of use case would we do? But of course, we now see a bit the second generation of use case. You already mentioned EIPO. So those are regulatory people looking at quantify, but from in the pessimist perspective. And we see also on carbon credits, on digital product passport, the interest comes from other kind of domain to say, okay, we need a new way. Who can help us? Is there a building block available? And then EBSI has a different role. Then ZEFI is not the initiator of new use cases, but it's just this facilitator of certain things. And then we say, okay, you want to have a marketplace for carbon credits? We can offer you those kind of things. And we can build on those kind of things. You cannot rely on those kind of things. You don't need to build the road. We are the road for you. And you can drive with this. Because coming back to your question, why has many blockchain projects failed? Because they needed to do everything. You started with an innovative idea, and you have ended in building nodes and building an infrastructure. You don't want to do that. There's no money in those kind of things. So you need to rely maybe a public good or a funded public good. That's the establishment that we want to make. We initiate use cases, and we hope to see with EDIC that will be, of course, an organization that can actively interact with those use cases. Because now it was, to be honest, it was a bit difficult and it was close. You need to be in the orbit of the EBSI, also for the call, to really know how to interact with EDIC. There will be an external voice. You say, okay, I have this proposal, I have this ecosystem behind me, I want to deploy it. How can we form a partnership? That was difficult until now, but EDIC is an organization that can have a partnership. We'll enter into complete new project and hope to see that more use cases that can convince or need to be convinced can, with their dedicated resources, apply. Yeah? And I think they will be ending up not having only EBSI funding, but looking at DJ Klima. Okay, we need to have a new carbon credit system, yeah? And the blockchain will be a part of that. That's actually what is happening in one of the Horizon 2020. The same I see with digital product passport. Once they have KPass version 3 or version 2, say, okay, we want to have an implementation. We need this same approach with the UPI.
Can I say a few words if you have time? I think you really point out very important part. So there's clearly a learning curve here. So when in the first, the EBSI use case, they also start, they were at the right of them. In time, we see a consolidation of it around some certain added values there. So there's a curve there. The second element is, actually, it was not pointed out about both of you, and this could be backed by the research as well. Having an active ecosystem, it really plays a role in terms of supporting to bring into the production part. It's a question of what was the other, the factor ecosystem really plays a role there. I think the third point is, so we see all these innovative ideas, sometimes that they're coming from the Latin American countries and the African cases that we can, see there. But we also need to keep in mind that in these countries, when you talk to this, the initiators of the project, it seems like the motivation comes from a distrust in the existing institutions and the systems in place. In the European case, we don't necessarily have that. We have systems of the trust. So the challenge is here, how to make these innovative solutions compatible with our system of trust. So I think these were some final remarks, just triggered the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Continue,
you have floor, then we will take another question from
I think that this is very difficult to forecast what type of use cases will be attractive for the level of our EUROPEUM today. I cannot answer it today. We must work together. I think that we should be open for the governmental strategies which are developed in the member states, and to combine it with the international projects practically. So we should convince the authorities which are really powered to execute the policies and regulations, the laws, legislation. And I think the government should hear the private industry, what the private industry expects from the government. because it does not make sense to create the use cases which would replace the role of the private industry. It never be successful, probably. Never happened in the past in practice. Of course, we had a history of economy, we have the different stories, let's say. But I think that we, for example, I talked a little about during my speeches. For example, we should be open for the different policies related to the implementation of the new technologies. So it is interesting where the state can make something as the facilitator or investor or legislator. I talked about the cybersecurity, but let's say the combination of the blockchain technology and challenges related to the AI. It is something which can show us some interesting applications, which are not fully commercial, but which show the strong point of the both technologies. We should look for what is happening in the quantum technologies area, where the European Commission started to create this new strategy, which the quantum declaration is a combination of the strategies which is developing the member states. And we had a real challenge which is related to the blockchain, because we should develop the post-quantum cryptography, for example. So we should think about the different issues which are where the state is the authority for the development, where the state is really necessary, and this type of the role of the EDIC. Of course, I am representing my own opinion. It's not the opinion of the EUROPEUM. We should discuss it, we should vote it, and we should create the priorities. But it is my view that we should look for the topics where the active role of the authority is expected from the citizens, of course.
Thank you. I would give the last question to the gentleman here, and then afterwards, if you have more questions, there will be a networking session, so you're invited to speak with our panelists.
Thanks. It's more of a response a little bit to this gentleman here about the finance behind it at the end. We mustn't lose sight of the fact that, at least in the private sector, it's who benefits from this. If you take a look at the Norwegian salmon, for example, great example, what do they benefit out of it? They benefit in brand protection. They're Norwegian and they're not Finnish, right? So people want to buy Norwegian salmon. And here's proof of it. So it will end up being a cost of doing business, maybe brand support in this particular case. And you've got to look at these cases, because in a mature world, when everything else is matured, it will be who's going to spend the money? Who's going to pay for it? Because otherwise you will find people just saying, well, we can't make any money out of it. So if it's the people that make the money, and the use cases are great ways of going forward and start investigating, not only does it work and how can it work, but what is the identifiable value to a market or to a particular industry that you can then go out and push and punt and get business from it, and somebody willing to pay because they are getting tangible benefits.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for our panelists, for our speakers today. Really grateful to have you here. Also, thank you for the interactive dialogue and for your questions. We've received so many questions online as well. We'll make sure to answer all of them, and that would be on our website at EBSI-NE in an FAQ format. So don't worry if you ask a question. We did not forget about it. We will come back to you with an answer. You will find that in EBSI-NE. And finally, I would like to give the floor to our partner and also the co-organizer of this event, Howest University, represented by Daniel, for the closing remarks and also to sum up today's event.
Yeah.
I will do it shortly, yeah, because I think you all deserve the reception and also deserve some Belgian beers, so no worries about it. First of all, most important learning I today, hybrid meetings work. So it was a surprisingly a bit the first one that I didn't see on-site and online. So congratulations also for the people that were actively monitoring this. Now, of course, today, and also briefly going, we have seen a bit the journey that we have passed through. We have seen that now today we have a political support. So I'm very glad with the support of Mathieu Michel, also giving this political vision to say, okay, we need a European sovereignty. We need empowerment of citizens. We need the business to be also in the position to have break down also the platform monopolies that are today. So that's a reality today, that you have that political support and you have that political momentum. We have seen also that the edict is being created, that member states come together and try to create an organization that wants to collaborate. This is a new kind of organization. Nobody has done that before. Everybody is looking at the other level, but now we are creating something that each member state is responsible. It takes a lot of time, a lot of conversation, a lot of voting, like Piotr has mentioned, on decision, but that's the reality that we need to see. And there's also something new. And a lot of other edicts are looking at this point, okay, how can we establish that? We have seen also that the infrastructure is setting important steps. So Jonas illustrated what they are doing. We are in TDI-DAS QTSP level. We are trying to see how the qualified ledger is being in place. And also the nodes are getting more maturity, ISO certificated, European based. So that foundation is also there. And also looking at the future, how can it be supporting more use cases? How will the node operator acting on this kind? We also see that the use cases also developed. The different project, even the Euro project on education, social security, and verified credentials, but also a lot of traceability, are also gaining momentum. You see that they are learning, they are advancing, they are not the pilots that were 2 years ago exploring. They're now pilots that are going into ambitious and going into production, and also linking, aligning with a lot of important European projects. The UEDI is mentioned several times, digital product password also mentioned several times. Those are the things that we need to aim at. We don't want to be isolated cases. No, we want to be in the regulatory aspect. So all those aspects are combined and create, of course, the perfect storm. Now, of course, in the perfect storm, you have two options. You can stay at help and have a go to the journey that you want with your boat, or you can sink. And this is an important momentum. And I also refer to the edict, and also the leadership of the edict is important. An active role to say we are a partner. We want to reach out to other partners, because all the things that I mentioned are just a part of that ecosystem. I think one of the most important topics that came again and again in the topics and the questions, and rightfully, is how do we interact with the private sector? How do we combine forces in Europe to achieve those kind of things? So I think my main message also to the edict and the other partners is that we really need to establish it. We really need to come out, and we need to have established a real active dialogue with those private partners. That will be the force of Europe. If not, we will stay in a very little public sector focus. So we need to ensure that we can have those kind of things. So the great work that the Commission has done in the last years to establish that kind of thing, laying the foundation, it was a bigger foundation. If we fail, it will be a bit a problem that we can have no alternative to the big European, the big American, platforms that are today. So we need to do this also for our citizens. I come up again in the grand vision that people like Mathieu Michel has to say, how can we again empower citizens and business? That is why we need it. We need a neutral layer that can help those kind of things. And not yet again, a powerful platform that monopolizes all the things and that can also try to structurize all the kinds of killing a lot of businesses, because that's what happening today. So it's a perfect storm. It's a great, great opportunity, but it won't only be achieved by working together. So hopefully, I think the most important learning is about, it has been a great journey. Now we need to start a new journey. We need to do this together, and it has a big responsibility in this. But most important, thank you very much for being there. Howest was thrilled to work together with the Access Advisors in this event, and also Vlerik to host that. And we are very happy to have you here on site, but also the guys and the people online, of course, are very welcome. And hope to see you and talk further, and also in the reception and in following meetings. He's already taken the beer. It's a good one.
I don't want to forget the heroes who worked on this. Thank you, Erica Martinelli. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Shane, for all the hard work that you've been putting for the last month to make this happen for everyone. Thank you very much, and see you at the